Chapter 1296. Shi Shangyun. Song Qing-shu looked strange, but thinking of Jia Baoyu's Grand View Garden, it was not surprising that there was Shi Shangyun. Li Qingluo went on to explain. Shi Miyuan has many sons, but he only has one daughter. He treasures her very much. If he can win his daughter's favor, it will be easy to persuade Shi Miyuan. Shi Miyuan is the head of the censorate. As long as he agrees, Shun Yin and Lu Qingdao will not have any objections. The more Song Qing-shu listened, the more depressed he became. He couldn't help but say, "What a bad idea. Do you have a better idea?" Li Qingluo gave him a white look. Song Qing-shu was speechless for a while. He really didn't have any intersection with Shi Miyuan. He wanted to ask him for help, but he had no clue at all. Li Qingluo snorted and continued. Shi Miyuan's father is Shi Hao, the teacher of 3 emperors. His cultivation is unfathomable. Perhaps under his influence, Shi Shangyun has learned good martial arts since she was a child. In addition, her character is quite refreshing. If it weren't for her father who has been stopping her, maybe there would have been a heroine in Jianghu. You are so famous now, you can take advantage of her yearning for Jianghu. Song Qing-shu touched his nose and said, "Why do you want me to do such a dirty thing?" "Because only you have the charm and ability." Li Qingluo looked at him deeply. "If it were so easy, I would have chosen a handsome man in the sect to hook up with her." Song Qing-shu raised his eyebrows. He was very happy with her evaluation. He couldn't help laughing and said, "She is just a little girl who is ignorant of the world. You can find some experienced men who are good at playing with flowers. No one can compare with you in terms of clever means." Li Qingluo's lips showed a hint of sarcasm. "What's more, Shi Shangyun has a fiancé who is a childhood sweetheart. How can it be so easy to hook up with him?" "Fiancé?" Song Qing-shu was stunned. He didn't remember this plot in the dream of the Red Chamber. Li Qingluo said, "Her fiancé is called Wei Rulin. Not only is he handsome, he is also a top scholar." "Top scholar?" Song Qing-shu declined to comment. He was used to seeing big scenes. It was really difficult for a mere Zhuangyuan to arouse his interest. Wei Rulin, on the other hand, had a vague impression of him. He rarely appeared in dream of the Red Chamber. All that was known was that he was a young master of the royal clan, but he was not known to be the son of some duke. Jia Baoyu had given Shi Shangyun a golden qilin, but the golden qilin had appeared on Wei Rulin. The Rhodologists used this and Shi Shangyun's verdict to deduce that it was a token of love that she had given to Wei Rulin. Don't underestimate him. Not only was he appointed by Zhao Go as the top scholar in the Jinshu examination, he also won the top scholar in the martial sciences examination. It can be said that his literary ability can bring peace to the world, and his martial ability can bring peace to the world. I don't know how many ladies in the capital city dream of. Li Qingluo was full of praise. It was obvious that she admired him very much. If I hadn't already made arrangements, I would have wanted to marry Yu Yin to him. Song Qing-shu's expression changed. For someone like Li Qingluo to be full of praise, that person was clearly very outstanding. When he heard her last sentence, he could not help but ask, "Are you planning on marrying Yu Yin to her cousin, Morong Fu?" "Don't call her so affectionately." Li Qingluo glared at him. "What virtue or ability does Morong Fu have to have the qualifications to marry my daughter?" Song Qing-shu secretly mourned for Morong Fu. In the original work, Li Qingluo had never liked Morong Fu, let alone in this world. Li Qingluo was the White Lotus goddess with supreme martial arts. But Miss Wang is deeply in love with her cousin. It's just a young girl's love. Li Qingluo was expressionless. Marriage is obviously decided by the parents. Song Qing-shu, who came from the future, was very disapproving of this kind of arranged marriage. "I wonder who Madam wants to marry Miss Wang to? It's none of your business." Li Qingluo responded coldly. Song Qing-shu was speechless. If it were not for Xiao Long-nu beside him, he would have grabbed her and spanked her. "I've said what I should say. It's up to you whether you want to do it or not," Li Qingluo said coldly. Then she turned around and took Xiao Long-nu's hand with a smile. She began to ask about her well-being. The change of her expression was so fast that Song Qing-shu was shocked. After a while, Li Qingluo suddenly turned around and looked at Song Qingshu. It's so late. What are you doing here? Song Qingshu was speechless. Sister, this is my room, okay? Li Qingluo frowned. Isn't this my cousin's room? Song Qingshu shrugged. It's her room, but it's also mine. Li Qingluo's expression changed. She looked at Xiao Longnu and asked, You two are living together? Xiao Longnu nodded. Yes. In her mind, Song Qingshu had taken such a big risk to protect her. If she disappeared, the Southern Song dynasty would vent all their anger on him. In order to make him feel at ease, she had to stay in his sight at all times. As for sharing a room with him, it was not a problem. She was used to sleeping on ropes. She used to sleep in the same room with Guo in the tomb. Xiao Longnu was not familiar with the world. She did not know that a man and a woman living in the same room would make people's imagination run wild. Li Qingluo's face turned green and then red. It was obvious that she had misunderstood. After hesitating for a while, she decided to give her cousin a warning. Cousin, this man is very fickle. He is not a good match. You are highly skilled in martial arts and have a beautiful face. You can't find any man you want. Why are you with him? Did he lie to you on purpose? Didn't he tell you that he already has a wife? She almost told Xiao Longnu about her relationship with Song Qingshu, but a woman's modesty and sense of shame made her resist the impulse. She could only remind Xiao Longnu in other ways. Xiao Longnu's face turned red. She replied in a low voice, I know. He's my brother-in-law. Brother-in-law? Li Qingluo trembled. She subconsciously thought that the sister Xiao Longnu was talking about was her. She even thought that Xiao Longnu knew about her and Song Qingshu. She couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry. At the same time, she was worried that Xiao Longnu would misunderstand that she had such a relationship with Song Qingshu. She deliberately persuaded her to leave and thought that she was a scheming cousin, actually, that night with him. Li Qingluo's mind went blank. She subconsciously wanted to explain something. Song Qingshu's face darkened when he heard this, and he hurriedly interrupted her words. Ahem, don't misunderstand. It's not what you think. Although little junior sister slept with me, no, sleeping in the same room doesn't mean that we slept together. Li Qingluo couldn't react for a moment. Xiao Longnu faintly smiled. With a wave of her sleeves, a white ribbon wrapped around two pillars in the room. Then, with a tap of her toes, her entire body was like a light feather as she laid down on the white ribbon. Although it wasn't the first time he saw Xiao Longnu sleeping on a rope, Song Qingshu was still amazed. He couldn't help but sigh. Perhaps all the men in the world wanted to become that rope. Chapter 1297. Li Qingluo ran over to Xiao Longnu's side and looked around. She was also amazed. Clearly, she found this method of sleeping to be extremely wondrous. After Xiao Longnu demonstrated it, she leapt off the rope gracefully very quickly like a fairy. Oi, I want to sleep with my cousin tonight. We have some intimate things to talk about, so you better go. Don't get in the way. Li Qingluo suddenly turned around and looked at Song Qingshu. Song Qingshu was rendered speechless. No, I have to stay here. My fate is tied to my junior sisters right now. So how can I be at ease leaving her in the hands of the White Lotus Mother? Actually, although he had agreed to look after Xiao Longnu in the Imperial Palace, even if he directly let her go with his current identity and cultivation, what could the Southern Song Empire do to him? The reason why he had always said that was because he had finally reunited with Xiao Longnu after so much difficulty. He did not want to be separated from her again so soon. Xiao Longnu could not help but try to persuade him as well. Yeah, brother-in-law has done so much for me. So how can I leave him in danger? Li Qingluo glanced at her in exasperation. Cousin, you're far too naive. With what this bastard is capable of, why would he be afraid of the Southern Song Empire? As the White Lotus Mother, she was knowledgeable, so she obviously would not be fooled by Song Qingshu's tricks. However, when she saw how Xiao Longnu smiled silently, she already understood that while they were sisters, they had only just met after all. She should trust Song Qingshu a little more. Li Qingluo did not want to raise Xiao Longnu's ire right from the start either, so all she could do was snort at Song Qingshu. You can stay in this room. You can sleep on the rope. I'll sleep on the bed with my cousin. Sleep on the rope? Song Qingshu was taken aback. With his current cultivation, maintaining his balance on the rope was nothing difficult. But who knew what would happen if he slept soundly? One had to know that to be able to sleep safely on the rope for a night, one had to have a pure mind. Even Zhou Batong couldn't do it. He didn't think that he had so many tricks up his sleeve to meet the standard of a pure mind. He would definitely fall in the middle of the night. I won't do it. Song Qingshu flatly refused. Don't tell me you still want to sleep on the bed with us? Li Qingluo sneered. Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. Even though he really wanted to nod, he knew that saying such words would be asking for a beating. Suddenly, Xiao Longnu said, "How about this? I'll sleep on the rope, and you two can sleep on the bed." She had always been a quiet person and was not used to sleeping with others, even if that person was her sister. In addition, she was not familiar with the ways of the world, so she did not realize how destructive her words were. All right, I have no objections. The corners of Song Qingshu's mouth rose as he looked at Li Qingluo provocatively. This bastard. Li Qingluo clenched her teeth. However, through the conversation just now, she had already figured out her cousin's personality. To put it nicely, she was ignorant of the ways of the world, but to put it bluntly, she was a little cute. She fiercely glared at Song Qingshu, then unhappily pulled Xiao Longnu to the side and said, "What nonsense are you talking about? In this world, other than husband and wife, how can a woman sleep on the same bed with a man?" As soon as she finished speaking, the image of her and Song Qingshu on the bed in Yangzhou City appeared in her mind. She couldn't help but blush. At the same time, Xiao Longnu also thought of the situation in Gumu. For a moment, her jade-like face also became crimson. Her fingers twisted the hem of her clothes, but she couldn't say anything. Looking at the two sisters simultaneously revealing their infinite shyness, one bright and charming, the other elegant and refined, Song Qingshu couldn't help but be tempted. However, he also understood the principle of one monk carrying water to drink, but 3 monks having no water to drink. If there was only Xiao Longnu or Li Qingluo tonight, he would have a way to go one step further. However, with the two sisters here, Song Qingshu evaluated the favorability of both sides in his heart. In the end, his rationality still won out. All right, I'll sleep on the rope. Song Qingshu understood that he could take advantage of them verbally, but it was absolutely impossible for him to have one on each side. He could only tactfully lie on the rope. I hope I won't fall down in the middle of the night. That's more like it. Seeing his anxious look, a faint smile appeared on Li Qingluo's face. She pulled Xiao Longnu over to the bed. Cousin, elder sister has a lot of things to say to you. Song Qingshu, on the other hand, widened his eyes and looked towards the bed. Unfortunately, Li Qingluo had put down the bed curtain, so he could only faintly see the two women's silhouettes. He couldn't see the erotic scene that he wanted to see at all. Helpless, he could only settle down and start to sleep. Cousin, why do you call him brother-in-law? After a while, Li Qingluo's whisper came from the other side of the bed. Song Qingshu instantly pricked up his ears. He's my brother-in-law. Xiao Longnu answered matter-of-factly. Hearing this, Song Qingshu smiled knowingly. Although he couldn't see, he could totally imagine how wonderful Li Qingluo's expression was at this moment. Who is the elder sister that you're talking about? Li Qingluo was a knowledgeable person. At this moment, she had already realized that the elder sister that the other party was talking about was not her. It's my eldest senior sister, Xiao Longnu explained. Eldest senior sister? Li Qingluo was curious and continued to ask a few more questions. Xiao Longnu answered them one by one. Of course, with Xiao Longnu's personality, her answers were concise and comprehensive. After a while, Li Qingluo suddenly deliberately lowered her voice. What's your relationship with him? Don't get so close. My ears are itchy. Xiao Longnu giggled. Hearing this, Song Qingshu's heart fluttered and he almost fell off the rope. What relationship? After a while, Xiao Longnu finally recovered, but her tone was obviously not as natural as before. Song Qing-shu also became alert. Although the other party's voice was deliberately lowered and seemed to be using telepathy, with his current level of cultivation at such a close distance, he could roughly hear what they were saying. At this moment, the curtains on the bed were pushed aside by a smooth arm. Li Qingluo stretched out her head and looked over warily. Song Qing-shu subconsciously closed his eyes and at the same time pretended to let out a light snore. Li Qingluo then continued to ask, "Do you like him?" "Cousin, what are you talking about?" There was a rustling sound coming from the bed. Clearly, Xiao Longnu had turned her body around, and her back was facing Li Qingluo. "Can't you even tell, elder sister?" Li Qingluo giggled a few times. Clearly, she wanted to continue asking, but unfortunately, Xiao Longnu did not pay attention to her anymore. After continuing to listen for a while, Song Qing-shu realized that he could not hear any meaningful information and gradually fell asleep. The next morning, the sun shone into the room. Li Qingluo and Xiao Longnu woke up one after another. When they were about to wash up, they found Song Qing-shu in front of them with a bloody nose and a swollen face. Xiao Longnu cried out in alarm. "What happened to you?" Li Qingluo smiled faintly. "What else can it be? Last night, I don't know how many times I fell off the rope." "You still have a nerve to say that." Song Qing-shu glared at her unhappily. "I didn't sleep well last night. Since you're up, let me use the bed. I'll go back to sleep first. Call me when you're done washing up." After saying that, regardless of their objections, he pulled the two girls to the side and directly went to sleep under the quilt. As soon as he went under the quilt, he smelled a refreshing, sweet fragrance. He realized that it was the body fragrance of the two girls. He couldn't help but feel his heart skip a beat. But at this time, he was extremely sleepy and did not have any other thoughts. Hey, Li Qingluo wanted to stop him, but found that he had already gone under the quilt shamelessly. She could only give up. But when she thought that the bed and quilt she had just slept on was slept by another man, she felt a little strange in her heart. Subconsciously, she turned her head to look at Xiao Longnu. She saw that her jade cheeks were slightly red, like a spring had been added to an iceberg. Chapter 1298. After the two girls finished washing up, Li Qingluo saw that Song Qing-shu was still asleep. Li Qingluo said, "I'll take my cousin to the old residence of the in-laws." "Go ahead." Song Qing-shu waved his hand casually. "You're as lazy as a pig." Li Qingluo snorted and pulled Xiao Longnu out. Although Xiao Longnu didn't want to be separated from Song Qing-shu, she also wanted to see the place where her parents used to live. After hesitating for a moment, she followed her. After sleeping for another 2 hours, Song Qing-shu finally sat up on the bed and stretched his body. Suddenly, he thought of something and couldn't help but grab the quilt and sniff it. The faint fragrance immediately made him excited. It's not a good idea to sleep on a rope every day. If I could sleep on this bed with them, TSK, TSK, TSK. Thinking of this, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but giggle. After leaving the residence, Song Qing-shu didn't go to find Li Qingluo and Xiao Longnu. Instead, he went to Jianshan Academy. He knew that business was more important. Last night, Li Qingluo had analyzed the situation very clearly. He didn't need to go to Han Xingzhou. Whether it was for their friendship or for his northern expedition, he wouldn't let go of such a good opportunity. Therefore, the most important thing now was to go to Jianshan Academy and stir up public opinion. When he arrived at Jianshan Academy, Song Qing-shu stated his purpose. Hearing that he wanted to see the saintess, the scholars in the academy all looked at him unkindly. Having lived 2 lives, how could Song Qing-shu not know what was in their eyes? He couldn't help but laugh, thinking that the yellow-robed girl was quite popular. Go, go, go. The saintess is focused on cultivation. How can you see her just because you want to? A few scholars waved their hands. Song Qing-shu smiled lightly. I am a friend of your saintess. As long as you send a message, she will definitely see me. Although it was a big deal last night, the people present were either nobles or officials of the 4th rank or above. These scholars of the academy did not recognize his identity. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Song Qing-shu deliberately did not say anything. There are at least 8 or 10 people like you every day. Can you please change your excuse? Those scholars sneered again and again. Because the yellow-robed girl was too beautiful and had a noble status, all of the nobles in the capital city flocked to her and often tried to get close to her, which annoyed the yellow-robed girl to no end. All the scholars in the academy regarded her as their dream lover and were naturally unhappy to see those nobles trying to please her. Therefore, everyone tacitly joined forces to keep those flies at the door. They saw that Song Qing-shu was handsome and elegant, and his clothes were very particular, so they thought that he was a young master of some family who had come to harass the girl in yellow. Naturally, they stopped him. Song Qing-shu frowned slightly. He did not know the reason and could only sigh that it was easy to meet the king of hell, but difficult to deal with. However, he needed the help of Jinshan Academy, so he did not want to make things difficult for these people. Since you are not going to send a message, then I can only call her myself. Song Qing-shu had just finished speaking when he took a deep breath and shouted towards the direction of the mountain gate. Ingluo, Ingluo. Although his voice was not as majestic as the lion's roar, it was plain and clear to every corner of the academy. All the scholars were shocked. Although they did not know martial arts, they had seen a lot of it. Jinshan Academy was divided into the inner and outer courtyards. The disciples of the outer courtyard were familiar with the books of the sages and took the path of the imperial examinations. The disciples of the inner courtyard were diligent in practicing martial arts and were the reserve strength of the officers in front of the palace. After interacting with the disciples of the inner courtyard, these scholars had trained their eyesight very well. Naturally, they knew that the person in front of them had a very high level of cultivation and was not someone they could stop. Song Qing-shu's voice caused a commotion in the entire academy. Very quickly, a group of people flew over. Who is making such a ruckus here? Song Qing-shu nodded his head inwardly. These people all had a very solid foundation in martial arts. It seemed that Jinshan Academy was indeed a place of hidden talents. The group of inner disciples quickly turned their attention to Song Qing-shu and surrounded him. The person in the lead angrily shouted, "What kind of sacred place is Jinshan Academy?" Emperor Taizong personally wrote, "Civil officials get off the sedan chair, military officials get off the horse. You actually dare to break into the mountain gate. You really have some guts. Men, capture this madman for me and give him 30 strokes of the plank before handing him over to the Lin in prefecture for punishment." Umph. Song Qing-shu snorted. The group of people instantly trembled and felt their blood boil. How could they take even half a step forward? Zhao Ingluo, if you still don't come out, don't blame me for being ruthless. Song Qing-shu had always been a person with a good temper. However, as his cultivation and status increased, he naturally developed the arrogance of a superior. Previously, he had been made difficult by those scholars. Now, a group of people had come and fiercely wanted to beat him up. It was inevitable that he would be a little angry. How dare you? How dare you tarnish the name of the Holy Maiden? Although they were intimidated by his martial arts, this was their headquarters after all. They did not know how many experts there were in the academy. In addition, they were all young and vigorous. How could they show any weakness? Enough. Suddenly, a cold voice came from the side. Everyone turned around and saw a slim and beautiful figure in a fluttering yellow dress standing not far away. Who else could it be but their holy maiden? He is my friend. You can all leave, the yellow-robed woman said calmly. The group of people were extremely depressed and could only leave resentfully. Many of them fiercely glared back at Song Qing-shu as they left. I didn't expect your charm to be so great. I really got shot even though I was lying down. Seeing that those people had left, Song Qing-shu said gloomily, "Who asked you to come to the entrance of the academy so early in the morning?" Thinking that everyone in the academy had heard it and that she had defended him just now, there would be all kinds of rumors in the academy. She blushed slightly and felt a little angry. "What do you want from me? You hurt our relationship by saying that. We are friends. Can't I look for you for no reason?" Song Qing-shu said exaggeratedly. "You have been in Linen for so long, and I have never seen you look for me." The yellow-robed woman replied calmly. "If you don't say it, I will go back. With that, she turned and walked into the academy. Thinking of her strange behavior last night, her heart was in a mess. Now, she really did not know how to face this man. Hey, Song Qingshu panicked and pulled her back. You're really leaving? The yellow-robed woman looked into the distance guiltily. Seeing that many people in the academy were intentionally or unintentionally glancing at them, she couldn't help but be anxious. Let go of me. Song Qingshu just looked at her with a smile. Seeing that she was really a little annoyed, he just let go of his hand. The yellow-robed woman rolled her eyes at him grumpily. It's not convenient to talk here. Come with me. Then she turned around and left. Song Qingshu followed behind her and looked provocatively at those people in the academy. Seeing those people gnashing their teeth, he was very happy in his heart. This scene is like going to someone else's school and taking away their campus bell in front of everyone in my previous life. Seeing the direction of the two people's departure, those people in the academy suddenly burst into an uproar. Did the Holy Maiden take that man to her room? How was it possible? For so many years, the Holy Maiden's room has never allowed men to go further. If you don't believe me, see for yourself. That's right, that man just now seemed to call the Holy Maiden by her name. He seemed to call her quite intimately. It's over, my Holy Maiden. Hearing the faint wails in the wind, Song Qingshu only felt refreshed and his mind was clear. What are you laughing at? The yellow-robed woman suddenly asked. Being with a beautiful and refined fairy like you, if I don't laugh, should I cry? Song Qingshu looked at her with a burning gaze. Save those words for that, Miss Long, the yellow-robed woman snorted, but the corner of her mouth slightly curled up. The yellow-robed woman didn't say anything else. Not long after, the two arrived in front of a quiet courtyard. There were a few maids guarding the door. Seeing a man behind her, they couldn't help but be surprised. Miss, this gentleman is my friend. Bring the pot of tea from the small room over. Then, without my orders, no one is to disturb us. The yellow-robed woman very naturally ordered. The maids all looked at each other. It had to be known that their miss never brought a man over. Also, the pot of tea she had just mentioned was real long jing before the rain. Moreover, it was picked from the 18 imperial tea trees beside Longjing. There was a limited amount every year. After the emperor and empress dowager had a portion, there wasn't much left. Many of the nobles in the capital coveted those tea leaves. The yellow-robed woman had obtained a little with great difficulty, but she couldn't bear to drink it. The group of maids began to gossip, guessing at Song Qingshu's identity. As soon as they entered the room, a thin and sweet fragrance assaulted them. Song Qingshu had a strange expression. In his previous life, there seemed to be some research done by a relevant organization. A woman's preference for perfume could often show how passionate she was about sex. Women who liked light fragrances tended to be cold. Women who liked rich and sweet fragrances tended to be... Song Qingshu couldn't help but glance at the yellow-robed woman. He hadn't thought that under her icy cold exterior was a burning volcano. But thinking about it, it was understandable. Every time she appeared, a group of maids would play music and occasionally create flower petals. Deep down, she must be a person who was cold on the outside. Why are you looking at me like that? The yellow-robed woman turned and happened to meet his gaze. She couldn't help but ask. Nothing. Song Qingshu knew that if he told the truth, the other's anger would not be a joke. He instinctively looked around the room. Seeing that the decorations were very elegant, he couldn't help but smile. I wouldn't be the first man to enter your room, right? Of course not. The yellow-robed woman rolled her eyes at him. My master came. She clearly didn't want to dwell on this topic and hurriedly changed the topic. Okay, now that there's no one else to disturb us, you can tell me the purpose of your visit. Song Qingshu sat face to face with her and then said, The purpose of my visit is to ask for your help. Then he repeated what Li Qingluo had said the night before. Of course, he didn't mention anything that shouldn't be mentioned. After listening, the yellow-robed woman didn't say anything and only looked at him quietly. Song Qingshu couldn't help but say gloomily, Can't you say something? What do you mean? Chapter 1299. Song Qingshu was shocked. What do I owe you? The yellow-robed woman opened her mouth but didn't say anything. Instead, her face blushed slightly. After a long time, she whispered, "You also told me how you were able to call the wind and summon the rain last night." Song Qing-shu remembered that in order to get the answer last night, she had even kissed him. He covered the place where she had kissed him last night and couldn't help giggling. "Don't laugh." The yellow-robed woman couldn't help feeling annoyed. Okay, I won't laugh. Song Qing-shu saw that the woman in front of him was about to transform into an angry female leopard and hurriedly said, "Since I have received the reward, I naturally won't go back on my word." The yellow-robed woman's expression eased slightly, but when she thought of the reward he spoke of, she felt uncomfortable. Song Qing-shu cleared his throat and began to explain. "Do you know the principle of rain?" The yellow-robed woman frowned slightly and shook her head. Although she knew that thunder and lightning were only myths and legends, she really didn't know how it would rain. Song Qing-shu explained with a smile. "When the sun shines on the earth, water vapor rises from the surface of the ocean and lake and becomes part of the air. When it encounters cold air in the sky, it condenses into small water droplets. These small water droplets are very small, so small that they can't be seen with the naked eye. They are small and light. They are carried in the air by the rising air currents and gather together to form clouds. Clouds are formed by water vapor." The yellow-robed woman couldn't help but ask. She was confused by the rising air currents. It should be known that the people of this world always imagined clouds as a mysterious thing and often associated them with all kinds of myths and legends. How could they know that clouds were actually ordinary water vapor? "Of course, I have been to the clouds." Song Qing-shu couldn't help but think of the scene of him and Dongfang Mushua passing through the clouds at Blackwood Cliff. A trace of tenderness appeared on his face. The yellow-robed woman subconsciously felt that he was bragging. After all, according to common sense, only immortals could ride the clouds. But when she thought of the scene of him walking step by step into the sky last night, she couldn't help but sigh. "That's right, with your qigong yesterday, it wasn't difficult to go up to the clouds." Imagining the scene described by the other party, she suddenly frowned and said, "According to what you said, the clouds are all water droplets, so why don't the water droplets fall? Didn't I just say that those water droplets are very small, so small that you can't even see them?" Song Qing-shu explained, "The raindrops that you usually see are more than 1,000,000 times larger than those water droplets." 1,000,000 times? The yellow-robed woman's expression changed. She couldn't imagine what 1,000,000 times was. Song Qing-shu explained to her, "Those small water droplets are also called cloud droplets. They mainly rely on absorbing the water vapor around the cloud to condense themselves." What is condensing? You can think of it as strengthening yourself. If the water vapor in the cloud can be continuously supplied and replenished, the surface of the cloud droplet will always be in a state of supersaturation. Then, this condensation process will continue and the cloud droplet will continue to grow. When the cloud droplet grows to a certain extent, because the volume and weight of the large cloud droplet will continue to increase, they will not only be able to catch up with the slower small cloud droplets during the process of falling, but they will also swallow more small cloud droplets to strengthen themselves. When a large cloud droplet grows larger and larger, it will finally become so large that the air can no longer hold it, and it will fall straight from the cloud to the ground. It will become the common rain that people see and eventually become raindrops. The yellow-robed woman nodded, not fully understanding. Fortunately, she was well-read and smart. Although there were still many details that she didn't understand, she understood the general principle. But the yellow-robed woman suddenly thought of something and looked at Song Qing-shu with a burning gaze. "According to what you said, it will only rain when the cloud droplets are large enough. But how did you so coincidentally control the time of the rain yesterday?" "This is all thanks to your help." Song Qing-shu smiled. "Me?" The yellow-robed woman's pretty face blushed. "How did I help you?" She thought to herself, "I don't even know the principle of rain. How can I help you? Did you forget the bag of things that you helped me find yesterday?" Song Qing-shu's eyes were full of smiles. "That bag of salt?" The yellow-robed woman's moist red lips were wide open. That bag of salt is used for rain? When she heard his request yesterday, she was confused, but she still found it for him out of trust. Later, after experiencing the shock of him ascending to the sky and summoning the wind and rain, this small matter was quickly forgotten. Who would have thought that it would be related to rain? Otherwise, should I bring it to eat? Song Qingshu smiled and continued to explain. Just now I already explained how rain is formed, but there is still a key question that I haven't said. That is, how does the water vapor form small water droplets in the first place? Ow! The yellow-robed woman was already confused at this time and asked completely out of conditioned reflex. Song Qingshu answered, water vapor must accumulate around small particles, such as dust, to form water droplets or ice crystals. These particles are very small and can't be seen with the naked eye. But without these particles, even if there is enough water vapor in the air, it is impossible to form a drop of rain. So you use salt to replace those particles? The yellow-robed woman was exceptionally intelligent and quickly deduced other things from one example. That's right. Song Qingshu nodded. When I reached above the clouds, I used my power to spread the fine salt evenly. The water vapor in the clouds condensed, and the speed of rain was greatly reduced. As Song Qingshu spoke, he suddenly realized that the yellow-robed woman was staring at him blankly and couldn't help but laugh. Is there a flower on my face? The yellow-robed woman's face reddened, and she hurriedly shook her head. She whispered, I didn't understand what it meant to be a pedant before, but today I finally see it. Not only are your martial arts unparalleled, you are actually so knowledgeable. These skills are not worth mentioning. Song Qingshu's expression became solemn. In fact, my greatest strength is that I am handsome and elegant. The yellow-robed woman originally looked at him with a face of worship, thinking that he would say something that would shock the ancients and dazzle the contemporaries. She didn't expect such an answer. She couldn't help but blush and spit. You are always so frivolous. Song Qingshu spread out his hands. Looking at your face just now, if I continue to be serious, you will worship me as your master. I don't want you to call me master. Then what do you want me to call you? The yellow-robed woman opened her mouth, but in the end, she didn't say this out loud. There was a faint smile on her face. Actually, I really want to invite you to the academy to teach those students. Please don't. Song Qingshu shook his head like a rattle drum. Your academy studies the books of sages and sages. They're used to take the imperial examinations and rise to the sky in one step. They won't be willing to learn this knowledge of physics even if you give it to them for free. Thinking of the group of fanatical bookworms in the academy, the yellow-robed woman nodded subconsciously. That's right. What's more? Song Qingshu changed the topic and looked at the yellow-robed woman with a smile. Those students in the academy are basically your fanatical fans. If they knew about our relationship, wouldn't I be ganged up on? Bah! The yellow-robed woman's face reddened. She couldn't help but spit lightly. What relationship can I have with you? The relationship of sharing a bed, the relationship of kissing. Seeing that the yellow-shirt woman's face was getting darker and darker, he hurriedly changed the topic. Ahem, I've already told you the secret of the rain. Shouldn't you return the favor and help me? The Shinzu scripture that you Tanji practiced in the demigods and semi-devils came from the country of Magadha. That was why the monk posted a peerlessly beautiful Princess Magadha on the public account today. Chapter 1300. You should have told me that last night. The yellow-robed girl snorted and muttered. Song Qingshu knew that she was still holding a grudge about last night's kiss. He smiled and said, Hey, if you really want to count, you should have promised me in the Gene Kingdom. Before he finished, the yellow-robed girl interrupted him and blushed. Okay. Promise me one more thing, and I'll help you. It's always hard to refuse a beautiful woman's request. Tell me, what do you want me to promise? Song Qingshu naturally would not be so clear with her. Helping her might not mean losing. Just like when a man and a woman borrowed books, they could only return it after borrowing it. Over time, they could improve their relationship. Can you take me to see the clouds next time? The yellow-robed girl asked carefully, her eyes full of expectation. Song Qingshu hesitated and said, If I take someone with me, I may not be able to fly so high. The yellow-robed girl's expression darkened. Well, forget it. Seeing her disappointment, Song Qing-shu could not help but say, "Don't worry, it's just a little difficult. I can take you to try." He had already thought it through. It was difficult to take someone to see the clouds on flat ground. What if they set off from the top of the mountain? Wouldn't it save a lot of distance? Really? Hearing his promise, the yellow-robed girl cried out in surprise. She was usually taught to be indifferent, but now she completely forgot her master's teachings. She was as excited as a child. Of course. Looking at the yellow-robed girl's excited face, Song Qing-shu could not help but laugh. Now it's time to talk about me. Seeing that she was still happy, Song Qing-shu could not help but remind her. The yellow-robed girl suddenly looked embarrassed. In fact, although I am the Holy Virgin of the Academy in name, I never care about specific matters. Moreover, if I do it, I'm afraid it will have the opposite effect. What opposite effect? Song Qing-shu was stunned. That's right. The yellow-robed woman stammered, as if she was thinking about how to phrase it. Finally, she could not help but stomp her feet. Oh, it's not like you haven't seen those people in the academy today. If I stand up for you, they may turn around and ruin your plan. Song Qing-shu finally understood. He couldn't help but sigh. Although the yellow-robed woman and Xiaolong Nu had similar temperaments, both of them were as cold as ice. The two of them were fundamentally different. Xiaolong Nu was ignorant of worldly affairs and could be said to be innocent and naive. The yellow-robed woman, on the other hand, was meticulous and extremely mature. Her insight into human nature could be said to have reached an extremely brilliant level. Even she herself did not expect that she was keenly aware of the danger involved. With the love these people had for her, if they knew that she had made an exception for a man, they might really go crazy out of jealousy. Not only would they not help her, but they would also secretly make things difficult for her. It was one thing for Song Qing-shu to understand, but another for him to be depressed. So you gave me an empty promise just now. Not only did I tell you the secret of the rain, but I also agreed to one of your conditions. The yellow-robed woman blushed. Although she did not understand what an empty promise was, she could roughly guess what it was. She said guiltily, "Don't worry. Although I can't directly help you, I can help you in other ways." How? After being fooled once, Song Qing-shu's expression suddenly became suspicious. The yellow-robed woman explained. Now the affairs of Jinshan Academy are managed by the Chancellor of the Directorate, Li Shouzhong. These years, it can be said that he has students all over the world. Whether it is in the imperial court or in the academy, he is extremely prestigious. As long as he agrees, the public opinion of the imperial court will definitely develop in the direction that you expect. Li Shouzhong? Song Qing-shu always felt that the name was very familiar, but he could not remember where he had heard it. I am not related to him. How would he be willing to help me? The yellow-robed woman pursed her lips and smiled. Have you forgotten what the surname of General Yu's wife is? Li. Song Qing-shu's eyes lit up. You mean? That's right. The yellow-robed woman nodded. Li Shouzhong is Madame Yu's younger brother. He would not let go of such a good opportunity. That's good. I will go find him now. Song Qing-shu stood up excitedly. He was excited not only to avenge Xiaolong Nu, but also to seek justice for a national hero like Yu Fei. After a few steps, he suddenly thought of something and turned around again. Why don't you come with me? In his opinion, they were both from the academy. With the yellow-robed woman accompanying him, it would be easier for him to put in a good word for Li Shouzhong. The yellow-robed woman looked embarrassed. She said apologetically, "In fact, there's one thing I didn't say just now. My identity is sensitive. Yu Fei's case was approved by my brother. If I help you, I will be openly against him." Only then did Song Qing-shu remember that the yellow-robed girl was the daughter of Emperor Huizong of Song, and her current situation in Lin and was indeed very awkward. Forget it, I'll go alone. But when I think about how you've extracted a secret and a condition from me with just a few words, I always feel that I've made a huge loss. The yellow-robed woman slightly raised the corner of her mouth. At least I have pointed out a clear way for you. Otherwise, you will be like a headless fly bumping around, and you will not get anything. It is not certain whether it is a clear way or not. Song Qingshu was not as optimistic as her. He had experienced too many things. He had long understood that before the dust settled, there might be mistakes no matter how sure he was. All right. I'll take it as I owe you a favor. As soon as the yellow-robed woman said these words, she was shocked. She never thought that she would use such a coquettish tone in front of a man. Coming out of Jianshan Academy, Song Qingshu asked people along the way. Not long after, he arrived at the gate of Li's mansion. When he stated his purpose of coming, the gatekeeper told him that Master had gone out and had not come back yet. Song Qingshu frowned. He did not know whether Li Shouzhong really went out or did not want to see him. When he was worried, suddenly a soft sedan stopped at the door. Following that, an elegant and dignified young woman walked out of the palanquin. Her temperament was very unique, like an ancient well without any ripples, and also like a melodious evening bell in the evening mist. She was calm and composed, but also revealed a strong sense of vicissitudes. This young woman was obviously in the best years of a woman, but from head to toe revealed a sense of discouragement, which made people sigh uncontrollably. "Sister-in-law," Song Qingshu blurted out. As soon as the words left his mouth, he secretly cursed. It turned out that this young woman was the widowed Li Wan of Jia's mansion. When he disguised himself as Jia Baoyu and met her a few times, he called out completely out of instinct. When Li Wan heard a handsome and tall stranger call her sister-in-law, her pretty face immediately turned red. There was a trace of anger between her eyebrows. She could not help but scold. Where did this lecture come from? She was a very traditional lady of a noble family. In addition, she was a widow at a young age. It could be said that she paid great attention to her reputation. She rarely talked to men, let alone being called so intimately by a stranger. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and could only apologize. "I am really sorry. I was dazzled and recognized the wrong person. I hope Madam does not take offense." Li Wan's expression softened a little. The other party was polite. She could not pursue the matter further due to her upbringing. She nodded and ignored him, walking straight to the door. Song Qingshu hurriedly chased after her. "Madam, please wait." Relying on the omnipotent gentleman, he learned the name of the actress who was the lowly version of Murong Chiodi. He did a poll on a public account to compare her with the girl version of Murong Chiodi. The result was somewhat unexpected. Chapter 1301. What do you want to do? Seeing this strange man rushing towards her, Li Wan subconsciously stepped back and said in a panic. Song Qingshu had to raise his hand and explain, "Madam, I have no evil intentions. I just want to visit your father, but unfortunately, I can't get in." At this time, he realized that the reason why he felt Li Shouzhong's name was familiar was that he was Li Wan's father. When he was pretending to be Jia Baoyu, in order not to expose himself, he secretly inquired about everyone's identity, background, temperament, and so on. Although he had only met Li Wan once, he had a deep impression of this young widowed sister-in-law who lived at home. It should be known that Jia Baoyu was the focus of everyone in the Fu. Everyone greeted him with a smile and was extremely enthusiastic. Only Li Wan still had that kind of indifferent expression when she saw him. At that time, Song Qingshu thought that he had made a mistake and was worried for a while, but later he found out that it was not the case. It turned out that Li Wan's husband, Jia Zhu, was the eldest son of the Jia mansion and a well-known genius. At a young age, he passed the imperial examination and was praised as the top scholar. At that time, he was also loved by many people. Unfortunately, the heavens were jealous of him, and he passed away at a young age, causing Li Wan to be a widow in her youth. This bright flower did not have time to fully bloom before it withered halfway. Seeing that everything in the Jia mansion that originally belonged to her husband was transferred to Jia Baoyu, Li Wan inevitably felt a knot in her heart. Naturally, she did not like Jia Baoyu. In addition, Jia Baoyu was greedy and lustful. Several times, he even had thoughts about her. Li Wan felt disgusted, and her expression naturally became colder. Of course, Song Qingshu was not clear about this reason. He could only speculate based on various kinds of information, but he could guess most of it. Hearing his words, Li Wan subconsciously looked at the gatekeeper. The person hurriedly replied, reporting to Second Miss. This Prince Song wants to visit the master, but the master is out and not at home. Li Wan nodded and said to Song Qing-shu, my father will be back in a while. After saying that, she continued to walk into the mansion. Obviously, these years of living alone had made her accustomed to not paying attention to the outside world. She was not interested in anything. Song Qing-shu was stunned on the spot. Obviously, he also knew that she was like this, so he could only smile bitterly. Li Wan walked a few steps and suddenly turned around. Young master, please come in and wait. It turned out that she suddenly realized that it was impolite to leave others hanging outside like this. Of course, this was also because she had returned home. If she was in the Jia residence, she would not care about this kind of thing at all. Thank you, madam. Song Qing-shu returned the greeting and hurriedly followed. Obviously, there would be tea to drink inside the house, which was better than drinking the northwest wind outside. Li Wan was dressed in a plain long dress without any ornaments on her body. Her hair was tied up with an ordinary wooden hairpin. It was impossible to tell that she was the daughter-in-law of the powerful Jia family. Although there was no makeup on her face, her complexion was still enchanting. Song Qing-shu secretly felt that it was a pity that such a beauty could only live in seclusion at home in the best years of her life, living like a Buddha. Feudal ethics were really harmful. However, at this time, Song Qing-shu suddenly felt that Li Wan's eyebrows looked a little familiar, as if he had seen her a long time ago. However, he was very clear that it was the first time they met in the Jiao residence. Why did he feel that she looked familiar? Although she did not turn her head, women were naturally sensitive. Li Wan quickly noticed that the man behind her was looking at her. That burning feeling made her a little embarrassed, and she secretly regretted that she should not have asked him to come in with her. Song Qing-shu noticed that a layer of redness gradually appeared on her originally white, jade-like neck. He immediately realized that she must have found out that he was looking at her. Worried that he would make her angry and ruin the plan, he hurriedly coughed and tried to change the topic. Madam, you were born in a scholarly family. Your temperament is elegant and refined, and you are born with such a beautiful face. I wonder which family's young master has the good fortune to marry madam. Although he already knew her identity, Song Qing-shu still pretended not to know and asked. After all, women like to listen to compliments. Although Li Wan felt that this man was a little frivolous by saying sweet words when they first met, she had never heard anyone praise her like this. After all, this society paid attention to euphemism and subtlety. Other people would either praise her family background or praise her talent. Very few people would directly praise her appearance and temperament. After her husband passed away, Li Wan's sense of existence in the Jia family became less and less. Later, she did not even have those praises. Song Qing-shu came from the future, so naturally he was not so particular. As soon as he arrived, he threw all kinds of sweet words at her, as if they were free. This made Li Wan's heart, which had been calm for several years, beat wildly. My husband's surname is Jia. Li Wan's face was slightly red as she replied in a low voice. Song Qing-shu subconsciously sighed. This young master Jia is really lucky to be able to marry such an excellent wife. Lucky? Li Wan's expression became gloomy. He passed away not long after I married him. Song Qing-shu was startled. Only then did he realize that he had flattered the wrong place. He could not help but look a little embarrassed. Li Wan seemed to have been reminded of something sad. Although those people did not say anything, I knew from their eyes that they did not think I was a good wife. On the contrary, they thought I was destined to bring bad luck to my husband. Song Qing-shu frowned. He finally understood why she was so unhappy in the Jia family. He hurriedly said, Bah, there is no such thing as bringing bad luck to your husband in this world. It's all nonsense said by some swindlers. In my opinion, the people in the Jia family are not kind. Their young master is obviously not in good health, but they still came to propose marriage. They ruined your happiness. Young master, be careful with your words. Li Wan frowned slightly and couldn't help but stare at him. My husband is very good to me and loves me very much. I don't want to hear anyone say bad things about him. Song Qing-shu looked apologetic. I was too impulsive. I hope you don't blame me, madam. Li Wan nodded and didn't say anything. In her heart, she wondered where this rash young man came from. If he knew that he was criticizing Jia Sherdao, who was now powerful in the imperial court, would he regret it so much? However, what Song Qing-shu said just now touched the bottom of her heart. She had lived a hard life these years. In the dead of night, she also thought that if she hadn't married into the Jia family, she would have been very happy now. Of course, this kind of thought often disappeared in a flash. After all, she was a traditional lady from a respectable family. The concept of obeying her husband when she married had been deeply rooted in her bones. Seeing the awkward atmosphere, Song Qing-shu quickly changed the topic. By the way, why is this mansion so quiet? I heard the gatekeeper call you Second Mississippi. We're the first and third miss. Li Wan suddenly stopped and sighed faintly. The third sister is very wild and likes to travel around. At this time, she is either in the desert or the western region. As for the first sister, she got lost at the temple fair when she was very young. These things were not secrets in Lin and City, so she didn't worry about it being known. Chapter 1302. Got lost. Song Qing-shu's expression changed. He thought that, as the eldest daughter of the chancellor of the directorate, there would always be servants looking after her when she went out. If she still got lost, it was obvious that she had been kidnapped by human traffickers. No matter in which world, human traffickers were an abhorrent existence. Song Qing-shu knew that the eldest daughter of the Li family was likely to meet with misfortune. If she was not sold as a slave, then she would be sold to a brothel. However, it was not appropriate to say this out loud, so he could only comfort her. Madam, the heavens help your sister. Maybe she met a noble person and saved her. I hope so. Li Wan sighed. In fact, their family had long given up hope for this. After arriving at the main hall, Li Wan originally planned to go directly to the inner residence. However, Song Qing-shu's small talk had an effect. Second Miss Li, who had always been shy, was embarrassed to just leave like this. She asked, "It's been so long, and I still haven't had the chance to ask your name?" If they were in the Jia family, with Li Wan's status as a widow, she would never talk to a man like this in private. However, now that she was back in her own home, she did not have so many scruples. Moreover, she had just left the Jia family, and it was as if the mountain that had been pressing on her heart had been moved away. At this moment, she appeared more excited and relaxed than usual. I am Song Qing-shu. This time, I have come to pay a visit to your father. Song Qing-shu answered. Song Qing-shu? Why does this name sound so familiar? Li Wan muttered to herself, and a trace of confusion appeared in her eyes. She suddenly thought of something and looked at him in shock. You are the immortal who climbed up to the sky to summon the rain? Song Qing-shu was startled, and then smiled. Song Mao does not have 3 heads and 6 arms, so I am not worthy of being called an immortal. Li Wan's face turned slightly red, and she also realized that she had overreacted. However, she cannot be blamed for this. It should be known that because of Sang Fei Hong of the Five Lakes sect, Song Qing-shu's deeds had long been made into various storytelling plays, which were sung in the streets and alleys, restaurants, and tea houses. It was unknown how many girls in the boudoir were moved, and even the womenfolk of the Jia family were no exception. Sometimes, in the dead of the night, Li Wan couldn't help but think that if the legendary figure suddenly stepped on the colorful auspicious cloud one day and rescued her from a sea of suffering, how great would that be? Although Li Wan's heart was like a piece of dead wood in the eyes of the people around her, only she knew that under the dead wood there was a faint spark, as if she was waiting for something. Of course, Li Wan was a married person after all, so she was more rational. In fact, she also understood that most of these storytellers were exaggerating. How could there be such a perfect man in the world? However, what happened in the imperial palace last night was witnessed by thousands of people, and even many people outside the imperial palace were lucky enough to witness it. When the specific news came out from the imperial palace, the entire Lin and city was stirred. Li Wan had originally slept very early. She only knew what had happened after hearing the servant girl's excited discussion. She was a little dazed. However, the girl's feelings came and went quickly. She soon remembered her identity and buried some thoughts that she shouldn't have deep in the bottom of her heart. With flagging interest, she asked Mrs. Jia for a leave and went back to her parents' home to relax. Mrs. Jia actually loved her granddaughter-in-law very much, so she naturally had no reason to refuse. However, Liwan didn't expect that she would meet the legendary man at home. She had never looked at him carefully before. Now that she knew his identity, she subconsciously looked at him up and down. She only felt that he was handsome with starry eyes and handsome eyebrows. More importantly, he had a unique temperament of calmness and indifference, which perfectly matched the image in her imagination. With Song Qingshu's current cultivation, he could naturally hear that Li Wan's heartbeat was almost twice as fast as before. He couldn't help but be stunned. Had his charm really been cultivated to the point that he could take people's chastity from thousands of miles away? Even this beautiful widow who had lived in seclusion for a long time would be tempted. However, he soon dispelled this idea in his mind. After all, he was not so narcissistic. He said, "Madam, madam." Li Wan finally came to her senses. Although she didn't touch it, she still knew that her face was hot. She said, "Child, why did you come to our mansion?" If it was before, it was already unprecedented for her to ask for his name. How could she ask about the visitor? Song Qingshu told her his purpose of coming. Li Wan was moved. After all, the whole Lin and city knew that Yu Fei was wronged. However, she knew that as the daughter-in-law of the Jia family, she couldn't easily express her opinion. So, she had to apologize and said, "I don't usually care about things. I can only wait for my father to come back." Although she said this, she had a higher opinion of him in her heart. After all, everyone knew about Yu Fei's grievances, but after so many years, no one stood up to uphold justice for him. It was obvious that they were worried about offending the emperor. However, Song Qingshu stood up without any hesitation. This kind of spirit was already admirable. Well, Song Qingshu had expected it and didn't take it seriously. He said, "Is Madam's husband the son of Jia Shumi?" Li Wan nodded subconsciously. Thinking of her identity as a widow, she secretly sighed in her heart. Since Madam is a member of the Jia family, what is Jia Shumi's attitude towards this matter? Song Qingshu thought that since he had nothing to do here, he might as well beat around the bush to see if he could get any information from Li Wan. Even if he couldn't get anything, it was excellent to chat with such a beautiful young woman to kill time. As expected, Li Wan still shook her head and said apologetically, "In the Jia family, I always pay no attention to the outside world. I'm afraid I have to disappoint you." Song Qingshu smiled slightly and said, "After all, Madam is the daughter-in-law of the Jia family. Why do you make yourself like a monk? In the future, Madam can try to participate in the affairs of the Jia family. Maybe your life will be more wonderful." Li Wan thought that with Wang Shifeng's competitive character, there was no room for her to intervene in the affairs of the Jia family. She didn't want to continue discussing this and hurriedly changed the topic. "Yesterday, I heard that you went to the sky to pray for rain. Can you tell me how you did it?" Seeing that her eyes were more lively and energetic than usual, Song Qingshu secretly sighed that it was good to be like this. Her previous appearance of a walking corpse really made people feel sorry for her. "Master," seeing that Song Qingshu didn't answer and kept staring at her, Li Wan was ashamed and annoyed. If she was stared at by a man like this on a normal day, she would immediately get up and leave. But today, she didn't know if she was curious about the answer or something else. She moved her body several times, but in the end, she couldn't make up her mind. Song Qingshu finally reacted and said with a smile, "Didn't Madam just say that I am an immortal? It's normal for immortals to be able to summon wind and rain." Seeing his teasing eyes, Li Wan's heart beat wildly again. But she also understood that the two of them met by chance, and that he was not willing to tell the truth. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but look gloomy. Seeing that the hall had fallen into an awkward silence, a burst of laughter suddenly came from not far away. "So it's Prince Song coming. Sorry for making you wait." Chapter 1303. Song Qing turned around and saw a scholarly old man walking in from outside with a smile on his face. Even though his hair and beard had turned white, one could still see how handsome and elegant he was when he was young. No wonder he could give birth to such a beautiful daughter. Song Qing sighed inwardly. The Li family's genes were really good. Li Qiushui, Li Qingluo, and Wang Yuyin were all peerless beauties. Li Songhai and Xiao Longnu were even more elegant and refined. Now, even their clan brother was so handsome. He really couldn't imagine what kind of nature-defying figure their ancestors were. Father, seeing this, Li Wan's eyes lit up, and a trace of smile appeared on her face. The scholarly old man nodded, and then set his gaze on Song Qing. Song Mao greets, Lord Li. Even though they had never met before, it did not stop Song Qing from guessing his identity. This scholarly old man was naturally the current chancellor of the directorate, Li Shouzhong. Prince Song is too courteous. Please sit. Li Shouzhong led Song Qing back to his seat. After exchanging greetings for a while, he could not help but ask, "What business does young master have in my residence today?" Last night's incident in the palace had caused such a huge commotion. Speaking of which, Li Shouzhong had also been present at the scene and had personally witnessed this man's miracle. He had also been shocked to the extreme. Now that this man had personally come to visit him, how could he not be curious? This time, Prince Song has come for. Li Wan suddenly spoke up, her gentle voice explaining on Song Qingshu's behalf. Li Shouzhong was incomparably shocked. One had to know that ever since his daughter had become a widow, she had really paid no attention to the outside world. Her heart was truly as still as water. Now, she was actually speaking up for a stranger. It was really unimaginable. Could it be? Li Shouzhong glanced at the man in front of him. His eyebrows were like swords, and his eyes were like stars. From head to toe, he exuded an aura that made people's hearts tremble. As a man, even he felt that he was dazzling, let alone a woman. Thinking of this, Li Shouzhong suddenly frowned. He was born in a scholarly family, and he himself was the chancellor of the Imperial College. He paid great attention to the reputation of his family. After Jia Zhu's death, he immediately expressed that his daughter was a member of the Jia clan in life and a ghost of the Jia clan in death, and would never remarry. Now that he realized that his daughter was behaving abnormally, he subconsciously felt unhappy. However, he remained calm and collected. After listening to his daughter's story, he said to Song Qing, "Prince Song, His Majesty has already handed this case over to the 3 departments for joint investigation. The merits and demerits of this case will definitely be handled impartially. Young master need not worry." Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He was not an ignorant commoner. How could he not know that behind the 3 departments stood the Prime Minister? The final decision was only the result of a game of interests. How could it truly be handled impartially? As a Chancellor of the Imperial College, Li Shouzhong would not be unaware of the trickery involved. Yet, he still used such clichés to brush him off. Clearly, he was tactfully refusing. Song Qingshu tapped his fingers lightly on the table as he looked at Li Shouzhong with a faint smile on his face. He waited until Li Shouzhong's expression became more and more unnatural before he said, "As far as I know, Madam Yu is Lord Li's cousin?" That's right. Li Shouzhong knew that the man in front of him was the person who had caused the emperor to suffer and the left and right premier to fly into a rage but be unable to do anything about it. It was not a wise move to offend him. After hesitating, he continued, "There are some things that I might as well say to young master. Although Madam Yu is a member of the Li family, regardless of the merits and demerits of the past, she and General Yu are both dead." Li Shouzhong paused and secretly pointed to the sky. "With the approval of that person, I cannot drag the entire family into danger for the sake of 2 dead people. I hope young master can understand." If he had not seen with his own eyes the miracle of Song Qingshu ascending to the sky and summoning rain, he would not have spoken so clearly. After all, the shock of yesterday was too great. He really could not see through the young man in front of him. Adding to the fact that he was already past the age of knowing his destiny, He naturally understood how important it was to have good karma. As expected, you know how to adapt to circumstances. Song Qing-shu had a look of disdain on his face. I'm afraid that there is another reason that Lordly has not mentioned. Your Li family is currently very close to Jia Shumi. If you put an effort to bring down Ma Chi-chung and Zhang Jun, it will completely benefit Lord Han Jiefu. Naturally, this is not something that you would want to see. Li Shouzhong's face immediately reddened. As the Chancellor of the Directorate, although his position was not high, his status was extraordinary. Everyone who saw him would be polite to him, unlike Song Qing-shu. If an ordinary person ridiculed him like this, he would have already exploded. But the person in front of him was that Song Qing-shu who could summon the wind and summon the rain. Even Ma Chi-chung and Zhang Jun were battered by him. Li Shouzhong did not think that he was more powerful than those two. He did not dare to respond. But Li Wan, who was beside him, could not sit still. Seeing Song Qing-shu ridiculing her father, she could not help but stand up and scolded. Prince Song, we have treated you with courtesy. Why do you have to be so aggressive? My husband is a member of the Jia family. Father is only doing this for my sake. If young master has any dissatisfaction, please direct it at me. Do not make things difficult for my father. Song Qing-shu looked at her in surprise. He could not help but admire this intelligent and kind woman. Knowing that it was not convenient for her father to say anything, she took all the responsibility on herself. After all, she was a woman and at the same time a widow. No matter how strong he was, it was not good for him to explode at her. All the women in the Grandview Garden are really clever. Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. In his eyes before, Li Wan was just a withered young married woman who didn't care about anything. But now he realized that she was also a very resourceful woman in her bones. Song Qing-shu looked at the woman in front of him. Her waist was soft, and she stood there timidly, as if she would be blown away by the wind. Although she was angry, her beautiful eyes were shining and her cheeks were blushing. She was more charming than her usual calm look. Song Qing-shu was moved. I finally remember who she looks like. Prince Song, it was not easy for my daughter to come back to her parents' home. I want to take her to pay respect to her mother's grave. Li Shouzhong suddenly opened his mouth. Although he did not say it clearly, his intention to drive the guest away was very obvious. Song Qing-shu smiled. Then I'll take my leave. Li Shouzhong hurriedly saluted. If there is anything wrong with my hospitality, please forgive me. Song Qing-shu smiled and turned to walk out. Li Wan looked at his back as he left. The light in her eyes gradually faded, and she returned to her usual withered look. Seeing that he had walked to the door, Song Qing-shu suddenly stopped. Lordly, I just heard from Miss Li that she had an elder sister who went missing when she was very young. Yes. Li Shouzhong sighed and could not help but stare at his daughter. He wondered why she had revealed so many things in such a short time. I don't know why you suddenly mentioned this. Song Qing-shu replied. Lordly should know my position in Jianghu. I am afraid there are few people in this world that I cannot find. Chapter 1304. But the sea of people is vast. She was so young when she was lost. I don't even know if she's still in this world. Li Shouzhong quickly recovered from his excitement. Song Qing-shu was indeed very capable, but after all, so much time had passed. The difficulty of finding his eldest daughter was probably several times more difficult than climbing up to the sky to pray for rain. Of course your daughter is still in this world. The corner of Song Qing-shu's mouth rose slightly. Not only is she still in this world, but she's living a good life. Really? Li Shouzhong suddenly became extremely excited. He had always been conflicted. Emotionally, he wanted to find his daughter, but reason told him that even if his daughter was still alive, she would probably have been sold into a brothel. If he found a prostitute, it would only bring shame to the Li family. Now that he heard that his daughter was living a good life, how could he not be surprised and happy? Li Wan was also inexplicably surprised. Since she was a child, she often saw her mother holding her eldest sister's swaddling clothes in a daze. She would sit for half a day and often wipe her tears. If she really found her eldest sister, her mother would probably smile in the underworld. How does young master know so clearly? Li Wan couldn't help but be suspicious, because when she mentioned this before, the other didn't respond at all. Now that he suddenly said this, it was inevitable that people would suspect that he deliberately spoke without thinking in order to get the Li family's help. Because I know your sister. A beautiful figure appeared in Song Qingshu's mind, a rose with thorns. You really know her? Li Shouzhong walked over excitedly and grabbed Song Qingshu's arm, unable to hide his shock. But after all, as the chancellor of the directorate, he could be said to be experienced and knowledgeable. He quickly recovered and asked suspiciously, "But how do you know she is my daughter?" It was no wonder that he was suspicious. It should be known that when his eldest daughter was lost, it had been so many years since then. As the saying goes, a girl changes 18 times between childhood and womanhood. Now, even if his daughter stood in front of him, he probably wouldn't be able to recognize her. How could the other be so sure? This is all thanks to Second Mississippi. Song Qingshu smiled and looked at Li Wan. Me? Li Wan felt that Song Qingshu's smile was a little hot, and her cheeks immediately turned red. That's right. When I first saw Madame, I felt that she looked familiar, but I couldn't put my finger on it. It wasn't until I saw Madame's angry look that I realized she looked exactly like a friend of mine. Song Qingshu smiled. Contact the eldest daughter you mentioned before. She matches my friend's age. Li Wan shyly lowered her head when she heard him mention the scene where she lost her temper. May I know where your friend is now? Can you bring him here for us to see? Li Shouzhong asked hurriedly. Song Qingshu did not reply, only looked back at him with a smile. Having been in the imperial court for many years, Li Shouzhong instantly understood the other party's intentions. He was clearly using this as a bargaining chip in exchange for his help. Li Shouzhong could not help but hesitate. The reason why he was not willing to help was actually mentioned just now. Was it really worth taking such a big risk for an illusory possibility? However, when he thought of his wife's tears in those years and her dying entrustment, Li Shouzhong gritted his teeth and said, "Okay, as long as you help me find my daughter, I promise to help you." He had already clearly thought about the pros and cons of this matter. Although Yu Fei's case was incited by the emperor, the main culprits were Qin Hui, Ma Qifeng, and Zhang Jun. As long as he was careful not to lead the public opinion to the emperor, there should be no problem. As for the Jia family, Li Shouzhong looked at his daughter beside him and secretly sighed. If Jiazhu did not die young and his daughter was not a widow, he would not get involved in this matter and let the political enemy of the Jia family, Han Xingzhou, take advantage of it. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. No problem. I can tell you the whereabouts of my eldest daughter, but you have to wait until this matter is settled. Li Shouzhong frowned and said, "No. What if you don't admit it? Tell me first." Song Qingshu shook his head and said, "If I tell you first, I can't do anything to you if you break the promise. After all, I am friends with your eldest daughter, so I can't make things difficult for you. So I need you to do something first. With my current reputation and status, I will never do something that goes back on my word." Li Shouzhong's expression changed. He carefully stared into his eyes, as if to judge whether the other party really knew something or was lying to him. After a long time, he said, "Okay, I will first complete what you just said. If I find out later that you lied to me, even if I have to give up my old bones, I will settle the account with you." Song Qingshu had a carefree smile on his face. "Don't worry, even if it's for the sake of my friend, I won't go back on my word." Seeing that this matter was settled, he still had other matters to attend to, so he bid farewell to the father and daughter and left. After Song Qingshu left, Li Shouzhong looked at his back in a daze and murmured, "Do you think he really knows the whereabouts of your eldest sister, or is he lying to us?" He should know. Li Wan was also uncertain at this time, but subconsciously she was not willing to believe that this handsome man was a despicable liar. I hope so. Thinking of the amazing miracle last night, Li Shouzhong suddenly became a little more confident in his heart. Then he said to Li Wan apologetically, "It's rare for you to come home, but I don't have time to accompany you. I have to go to Jinshan Academy first." Li Wan nodded sensibly and said, "Father, go quickly. Sister's matter is more important." "Ah, if only my third daughter was as sensible as you." Li Shouzhong couldn't help but sighed seeing that his daughter was so considerate of others at such a young age. This third daughter of his really worried him. She had no interest in women's arts, poetry, and books since childhood. Instead, she was full of yearning for Jianghu. When she was a little older, she ran to the end of the world and only saw her a few times a year. Li Shouzhong boasted that he was from a scholarly family, but he almost died of anger when he had such a daughter. If it weren't for the fact that his eldest daughter was lost and his second daughter had a hard life, which made him feel guilty, maybe he would have driven his youngest daughter out of the family. My third sister has her own ideas and pursuits. In fact, sometimes I'm quite envious of her. Li Wan showed a touch of sadness between her eyebrows. Li Shouzhong looked gloomy and said, "I am sorry." Li Wan showed a trace of a smile and said, "How can you blame me? In the past, I don't know how many girls in Lin wanted to marry into the Jia family. I don't know how many people are envious of the marriage you arranged for me. I can only blame my poor life." Li Shouzhong's nose turned sour, and he almost cried because of her words. In order to avoid making a fool of himself in front of his daughter, he hurriedly said, Okay, I will go to the academy first." "It's not so easy to deal with Ma Chi-chu," Li Wan suddenly said. "When I return to the Jia mansion, I will go to talk to my mother-in-law and see if I can persuade the Jia family to help. After all, Ma Chi-chu is also my father-in-law's political enemy." Hearing his daughter's words, Li Shouzhong's body trembled. This daughter of his was well-educated, reasonable, and considerate. She was the daughter he wanted the most. Unfortunately, her life was not good. Her husband died not long after they were married. Li Shouzhong shook his head and said, "Don't. You are in an awkward situation in the Jia mansion now." "I am afraid. Don't worry, father," Li Wan answered. "Actually, my mother-in-law also feels that she owes me these years, so they won't mind helping me with this little favor. With the Jia family's help, Song Qingshu's plan will succeed faster, and we can see my sister soon." Chapter 1305. When Song Qingshu returned to his house, it was almost noon, and Li Qingluo and Xiao Longnu had not returned. He was depressed and had to go out again. Originally, the servants in the mansion wanted to prepare lunch for him, but Song Qingshu refused. Firstly, this mansion was bestowed to him by the Southern Song dynasty, and the servants here were all kinds of people. Who knew if there were spies from Ma Chi-chun, Zhang Jun, and the others in the mansion? Who knew if there were any poisons in the food? Although he was not afraid of poisons now, he did not have the habit of eating poisons. What's more, he also wanted to take the opportunity to learn more about the customs of Lin, so he found a relatively large restaurant. In martial arts novels, restaurants are the most frequent places to trigger events. I don't know what will happen today. When entering the restaurant, a thought suddenly came to Song Qingshu's mind, but he immediately laughed. He had been to so many restaurants and inns over the years. Although a lot of things happened, there were more times when nothing happened. It was just a selective memory. It was still early, so there weren't many people in the restaurant. Song Qingshu found a window seat on the second floor and ordered some food and wine. He poured himself a cup of wine and drank by himself while thinking about how to deal with Tai Jian. He subconsciously rejected Li Qingluo's proposal before. What a joke. He was a 7-foot man. How could he use the beauty trick? What's more, Shermuyun, a famous treacherous official in history, would not be influenced by his daughter. Unfortunately, he could not think of how to persuade Shermuyun. The only thing to be thankful for was that the promotion of Jianshan Academy still needed time. He still had a few days to think about this problem. At this time, there were gradually more people in the restaurant. Looking around, there were not many empty seats, but Song Qingshu did not care about this and continued to drink there. Suddenly, a fragrant wind reached his nose. Song Qingshu raised his head subconsciously and saw a girl in a red cloak standing beside him and glaring at him. Although the girl was angry, it did not damage her charming and beautiful appearance. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. "Do we know each other?" Although he was a playboy, he was not like Duan Zhengchun, who could not even remember who his lovers were. On Mount Shaoshi, he still thought that Yi Earnyang was one of his former lovers. He was very sure that he had never seen this girl before, so he naturally did not know where her anger came from. "You took my seat." The girl pointed to where he was sitting and said with her cheeks puffed up, "That's strange. This is a restaurant. The seats are naturally first come, first served. How can it be a fixed rule?" Song Qing-shu said with a smile as he poured the wine. "Every time I come here, I sit in this seat. If I don't sit here, I won't be in a good mood. Once I'm in a bad mood, someone will be out of luck." The young girl's words were overflowing with menace. Song Qing-shu smiled. "Are you threatening me, miss?" The girl snorted and took out an ingot of silver and slapped it in front of him. "This is for you. Find another place to do it." After saying this, she ignored him and turned to the waiter, saying, "Waiter, come over and take this table." When the waiter came over and saw the situation, he immediately looked embarrassed. "Miss, there's already someone here. How about I find another table for you?" The young girl said angrily. "I want to sit here today. I'm not going anywhere." "What a coincidence. I also feel that this place has a good view. I plan to stay here for the afternoon." Song Qing-shu's voice sounded. "I'm afraid you won't be able to stay." The young girl coldly snorted and suddenly kicked the stool that he was sitting on. The stool's legs immediately broke. However, the scene of the other person falling down in a sorry state did not appear. Song Qing-shu was still sitting steadily on the stool and drinking by himself. The young girl did not believe it and kicked again. This time, the stool only had 2 legs left. However, not only did Song Qing-shu not fall, he didn't even spill a drop of wine in his cup. "Huh?" The young girl was surprised and bewildered. Suddenly, she coldly snorted, pretending to be mysterious. In an instant, she kicked again and broke the remaining 2 legs of the stool. She wanted to see how he could show off now. However, soon, her proud smile froze on her face and her eyes almost popped out. The man in front of her was sitting on a stool with 1 leg missing, but he was still as stable as Mount Tai. Not only that, but the stool was also firmly attached to his, but as if there were several invisible stool legs supporting it. The young girl couldn't help but reach out and touch under his stool. After confirming that there was nothing, she couldn't help but praise, "What kind of martial arts is this? Can you teach me?" Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. He was just thinking about how to teach this unruly girl a lesson. Who knew that her attitude would change so quickly? It was really unexpected. Just now, this young girl had eyes but didn't recognize Mount Tai. "I hope Senior won't take offense," the young girl in red said as she moved a new chair to replace the broken one under Song Qing-shu. "Senior, please sit. As the saying goes, one doesn't hit a smiling person." Song Qing-shu couldn't say anything, but he was a little depressed. "Senior? Do I look that old?" "Of course not. You look just like my brother." The young girl in red sat down on the other side of the table. Glancing at the wine and dishes on the table, she couldn't help but laugh. "How can this be enough?" After saying that, she took a silver ingot and stuffed it into the hands of the waiter next to her. She ordered, "Tell the kitchen to make a few more dishes for us. Fried quail with flowers, fried duck feet, chicken tongue soup, deer belly wine, beef tendon fried with mandarin duck, chrysanthemum rabbit shreds, stir-fried deer legs, ginger and vinegar gold and silver trotters. Pick the freshest ingredients. Don't think that we are stupid. This young girl's tongue can distinguish." "Not at all, not at all." Seeing that the conflict had been resolved and that he had gained a big customer, the waiter happily retreated. This young girl must be from a rich family. Song Qing-shu was a man who had been an emperor. Although these dishes were expensive, they wouldn't move him. Instead, he was more curious about the identity of the young girl in front of him. Commoner girls didn't have this kind of knowledge. Other than Huangrong, the girls in Jianghu weren't so particular about eating. As for the conflict with her before, Song Qing-shu wasn't so narrow-minded. Moreover, it was a little boring to drink alone. He simply acquiesced to everything in front of him and wanted to see what this girl had up her sleeve. "Big brother, what kind of kung fu did you use just now? Can you teach me?" The young girl said as she refilled his cup of wine like she was presenting a treasure. She really knows how to take advantage of the situation. Song Qing-shu was speechless. He replied, "Your kung fu is already considered good among the younger generation. Why would a girl learn so much kung fu?" His eyesight was now very good. From the speed of her kicks and the control of her strength, he could tell that she had received guidance from a master since she was a child. The only thing she lacked was experience. Who said girls can't learn more kung fu? The young girl in red pursed her lips and immediately began to act coquettishly. Big brother, please teach me. Her voice was so sweet that the men at the other tables couldn't help but tremble. Song Qingshu remained unmoved. My kung fu is not suitable for you. Chapter 1306. Liar. The girl in red pouted, obviously not believing his answer. You're so stingy. You obviously don't want to teach me, but you say it's not suitable. She was born into a rich and noble family. Since childhood, she had been protected like a star around the moon. Whatever she wanted was given to her. In addition, she was not a person of Jianghu, so she did not know the rules of Jianghu. She did not know that the martial arts of masters were never taught to outsiders. Song Qingshu did not mind. He just smiled and said, my martial arts need to be practiced in bed with a woman. You're a girl. How can you practice? The girl in red was startled and replied, I can practice with you in bed. When she saw Song Qingshu's expression, she finally reacted. Her pretty face turned red and she could not help but spit. Pervert. She had been taught by a famous master since childhood. Although she was not familiar with the martial arts of the world, she had some understanding. How could she practice in bed? It was obvious that this person was deliberately flirting with her. Seeing her expression, Song Qingshu was able to guess most of her thoughts. The martial arts double Zhuangyuan can be said to be unprecedented. How could a Jianghu person surnamed Song compare to such a character? Song Qingshu could not help but touch his nose. He was not angry. He still had this bit of tolerance. He was just curious. When this girl mentioned Wei Ruolin, she worshipped her as if she was a fangirl. He did not know what relationship she had with Wei Ruolin. Was she his sister? Several beggar clan disciples looked at each other. It must be known that since the founding of the Song dynasty, the people valued literature and despised martial arts. Outside Donghua Gate, it was common knowledge that those who sang the champion were good men. For a moment, they did not know how to refute. However, perhaps because they were all people of Jianghu, they subconsciously did not like those high and mighty officials. One of the beggar clan disciples snorted, I heard that Wei Ruolin is the son-in-law of the imperial censor, Shimi Yuan. Which official in the court dares not to give Shimi Yuan face? Who knows how Wei Ruolin became the champion? The young girl immediately flew into a rage. A red shadow flashed, and the person who spoke had already received a resounding slap in the face. Chapter 1307. Earlier, Song Qingshu had evaluated this girl in red's martial arts skill as not bad. Based on his current level of cultivation, he was worthy of the word not bad. Even if he could not make a name for himself in the Wulian world, at least he was more than enough to deal with several beggar clan disciples. Those people were slapped in the face before they could see their companion clearly, and the girl in red had already returned to her position. Bitch, you're courting death. Those beggar gang disciples finally realized what was going on, and they all cursed and rushed forward. Unfortunately, they retreated even faster. Within a few rounds, they were beaten black and blue by the girl in red, and they all fell back. Humph, none of you can fight. The girl in red clapped her hands and added insult to injury. Wait here if you can. Those people supported each other and ran down the stairs, shouting fiercely. I'll wait. No matter how many people come, I'll take them all. The girl in red snorted indifferently. Watching those people run away, Song Qingshu secretly shook his head. This kind of behavior was no different from those elementary school students in his previous life who went to complain after losing a fight. A few men couldn't win against a girl, but they still went to ask for help. If Huang Rong knew that she had such cowardly subordinates, he didn't know what kind of expression she would have. But winning by numbers seems to be the tradition of the beggar gang. Thinking of this, Song Qingshu understood. Aren't you leaving? Seeing that the girl was still sitting on the fishing platform, Song Qingshu couldn't help but ask, Why should I leave? The girl snorted. Song Qingshu thought about how to phrase it and couldn't help but remind her, those people just now were from the beggar gang. They went back to ask for help. If they get a 9-pouch elder or a lot of low-level disciples to form a dog-beating formation, you'll be in danger. I'll only know if I'm in danger after I fight. The girl didn't care. Song Qingshu shook his head and stopped persuading her. The girl was beautiful, but her behavior was quite masculine, which was really interesting. The two chatted like this. Maybe it was because of tacit understanding, but Song Qingshu didn't ask for her name, and the girl didn't ask for Song Qingshu's identity either. After a while, messy footsteps came from the stairs, and soon a large group of beggar gang disciples came up. "That which is over there," someone shouted, and a group of beggar clan disciples surrounded the girl with bamboo sticks in their hands. The diners on the second floor saw that the situation was not right and quickly paid their bills. In just a few breaths, everyone had left. Song Qingshu gave them a cursory glance. Although there were no 9 pouch elders, the leader had 8 pouch elders, and it seemed that his martial arts were not weak. In addition, there were so many people here, and there was no lack of experts among them. It was likely that this young lady would be in trouble. "Which, you hurt our brothers, and you still dare to stay here. How dare you?" The 8 pouch elder shouted angrily. The girl in red sneered. "You beggar gang people only have your mouth, so what?" This immediately angered the crowd. The beggar gang people's necks instantly turned red and rushed forward. The girl in red snorted, took out a chopstick, and shot it out. "The technique is good, but the skill is not enough," Song Qingshu secretly commented. She had both accuracy and skill, and could hit so many people in an instant. Unfortunately, she only slightly injured the beggar gang disciples, and didn't lose their fighting strength. But it was enough to make them flustered. The girl in red took advantage of the chaos to attack, and the beggar gang disciples screamed again. Unfortunately, there were too many people on the other side, and with the 8 pouch elder in charge, they quickly calmed down and stabilized the formation. "Strong wall formation," the 8th generation elder shouted loudly, and then he led more than 10 beggar gang disciples to line up in 2 rows. Each person's arm was linked, and 16 or 17 people formed a strong wall. With a shout, they suddenly lowered their heads and rushed toward the girl in red. The girl in red was shocked. She didn't want to be touched by this group of beggars. She dodged to the left, but who would have thought that 2 rows of beggars would rush toward her from the east and west? The girl in red saw the strange fighting style of the beggars and couldn't help but frown. She waited for the strong wall to come closer, but she didn't retreat. Her palms suddenly shot toward the person in the wall. She had fought with these beggar gang disciples before and knew that their skills were far inferior to hers. She wanted to push them away with one palm strike, but who would have thought that the strong wall formation would contain the weight of more than 10 people? And with the force of her charge, how could she push it away? The strong wall felt the force and paused for a moment, and then the 2 sides flanked her. The girl in red staggered and was almost knocked down by this strong force. Hastily, her left foot kicked the ground, and she flew over the top of the wall. Her waist bent at an exaggerated angle. It could be seen that her body's flexibility was astonishing. Before the girl in red's body landed on the ground, she cried out in pain. Turned out another strong wall of beggars was rushing toward her. Hastily, she took a deep breath. Her right foot touched the ground, and in the nick of time, she leaped over the crowd. Who would have thought that those strong walls came one after another, as if there was no end to them? As soon as the front line passed, they immediately turned to the back line, rolling and rolling like a giant wheel. In addition, the inn's terrain was narrow, so there was not much space for her to dodge. The girl in red was ultimately outnumbered, and her hands were tied, waiting to be tied. Song Qingshu's eyes brightened. This must be the strong wall formation that almost trapped Guijing and Huang Rong to death in the Juanshang assembly in the original novel of the Condor shooting Condor. Seeing that the space was getting smaller and smaller, the girl in red also began to panic. Unfortunately, the more she panicked, the more her moves changed. After all, she had not experienced the tempering of blood and fire, so it was difficult for her to perform steadily in a critical moment. Finally, the girl in red could not fight against so many hands. Her entire body was trapped by the bamboo sticks, and in an instant, her acupuncture points were sealed. She could no longer move. "Which, don't be arrogant again. The elder with 8 bags reached out and slapped the girl in red. "Smelly old man, you will pay for this slap." The girl in red glared at him fiercely. The elder with 8 bags sneered. "I've been in Jianghu for so many years. Do you think I'm scared?" As soon as he finished speaking, he slapped her again. However, this slap stopped halfway. It turned out that a young man had stopped it midway. Song Qingshu frowned. "It's one thing for you to bully the few with numbers, but to treat a little girl like this, I'm afraid it goes against the way of chivalry." Earlier, the girl had spoken so arrogantly that he thought she had some tricks up her sleeves. In the end, after watching for a while, he realized that the girl could only stare at them with her eyes wide open. After all, they had eaten and drank together. In the end, Song Qingshu could not bear to see her being bullied by a group of grown men. "What does it have to do with you? Who are you?" The elder with 8 bags tried to pull his hand back several times, but he could not move it at all. He could not help but change his expression slightly. He's in cahoots with this witch. They were just drinking and chatting together. The people who were beaten up earlier immediately recognized him. The elder with 8 bags knew that there was no way to resolve this peacefully today. He shouted in a deep voice, "Do it!" The group of beggars were already prepared. As soon as they received the order, they used the same trick and charged towards Song Qingshu. Who knew that Song Qingshu would not dodge or evade? He still stood in the same spot and coldly watched the other party charge towards him. The elder with 8 bags was secretly delighted. He thought that with the combined strength of more than 10 people, coupled with the momentum of a dozen people charging at him, no matter how high his martial arts were, he would not be able to withstand it. "Thanks. I'm calling Pork Chop Rice, book friend 47135557, and other enthusiastic book friends tips." Chapter 1308. Just like the young girl in Red's initial choice, Song Qingshu similarly stretched out his palm and pushed it forward. As soon as his palm came into contact with the crowd of beggars, he instantly felt a strong force coming towards him. Song Qingshu nodded to himself. The beggar clan obviously did not have many martial art masters, but they were able to stand tall in Jianghu for so many years and become one of the top clans. Sure enough, they had some tricks up their sleeves. This wall fortifying formation was similar to the Tantric Buddhism's joint attack method. Even though he had never fought against the 5 clowns of the Tibetan border, he had dealt with the masters of the Tantra Buddhism in the Ryong Palace, so he had the most right to speak. The Tantra Buddhism used a secret method to superimpose everyone's internal energy on one person. Even though the beggar sect's wall fortifying formation was not so ingenious in superimposing internal energy, it made use of weight and charging to make up for the shortcomings, so the effect was not much different. Of course, with Song Qingshu's current level of cultivation, a dozen or so beggar clan experts working together was not a problem for him. As long as he exerted his strength, these people would either have their bones broken or be seriously injured. However, considering that this time the girl in red only had herself to blame, he did not want to hurt her. Thereupon he used the stick spell. Following the momentum of their charge, he pulled them backward. In that instant, the group of people lost their balance and staggered backward toward his back. At this time, another group of people behind Song Qingshu was charging toward them. They were not able to stop their steps and collided with each other, causing the group of people to tumble backward. In the blink of an eye, a large number of them had fallen to the ground. Naturally, the wall fortifying formation could no longer be set up. The 8 bags elder was experienced and knowledgeable. He hurriedly stopped the rest of his subordinates from rushing over and said, "So we've met an expert today. Would you be able to leave behind 10,000 children?" Song Qingshu chuckled. "What? Do you want to find more experts to take revenge?" He was very clear about the enmity between that Song Qingshu and the Jiangnan beggar clan. Song Qingshu was completely dragged into the muddy water by the beggar clan. He lost his standing and reputation. Moreover, at the lion-slaying assembly, the Jiangnan beggar clans Ji Fa Zhonglao and Zhong Bo Long too died under Song Qingshu's Jiuyin by Gu Claw. This could be considered as a blood feud. Once the other party found out about his identity, it would probably be a fight to the death. He didn't want to see such a headache. The eight-pouched elder's face turned red. I wouldn't dare. Song Qing-shu waved his hand and said, "You can go now. I have some connections with the beggar sect, so I won't make things difficult for you." At this moment, Huang Rong's charming face appeared in his mind. He wondered if she would be angry if she knew that he was making things difficult for her disciples and grand-disciples for a strange woman. That eight-pouch elder saw that although his martial arts were high, he was still polite and courteous, so naturally he knew when to stop. After cupping his hands, he called for the disciples to support each other and leave. After the people of the beggar clan retreated, Song Qing-shu unsealed the girl's acupoints. Before he could say anything, the girl in red took the initiative to attack. "Who told you to be a busybody?" Song Qing-shu was startled. He saw that she was glaring at him angrily, as if he had ruined something good. With a cold snort, the girl turned around and left. "Stop," Song Qing-shu said lightly. "What? Do you want me to be grateful to you?" The girl in red said coldly. Song Qing-shu secretly shook his head. This girl must have been spoiled since she was a child, causing her mood to change. "There's no need for that. But today's incident was caused by you. Now that so many things have been damaged in this inn, you have to compensate the innkeeper for their losses." Hearing his words, the girl's face turned green and then red. She took out an ingot of gold and threw it on the ground. "This is more than enough to compensate them." With a cold snort, she jumped out of the window and quickly disappeared around the corner. "Thank you, young master." The innkeeper ran out and thanked Song Qing-shu. "Waiter, quickly bring a new jar of good wine for young master." "No need." Song Qing-shu smiled. Now that things had come to this, he was not in the mood to drink. He left an ingot of silver and floated away. In the wuxia novels he had read in his previous life, his biggest regret was that the people of the pugilistic world often fought and killed in inns and inns. Who knew how many pots, bowls, ladles, tables, and chairs were destroyed? The innkeepers worked hard to run their businesses, so why did they have to suffer such an undeserved disaster? Because he was an ordinary person in his previous life, he often thought from the perspective of an ordinary person. He couldn't be like those privileged people who didn't care about these things at all. "I'm such a hypocrite." Walking on the street, Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. All these years, he had been knocking on the doors of widows at night, bullying men and women, and so on. No matter how he looked at it, he couldn't be considered a good person. He was the typical example of a prostitute who still wanted to maintain a chastity. "Who cares, as long as my heart is at peace?" Unknowingly, Song Qing-shu had already arrived at the imperial censor's mansion. Previously, he had racked his brains but couldn't think of a way to persuade Shimi Yuan to help him initiate the impeachment of Machi Ruo. After thinking it over, he realized that the main reason was that he lacked sufficient information. He didn't even know what kind of person Shimi Yuan was, so it would be difficult to drug him. Not long after he handed over the visiting card, the gatekeeper ran back and said, "Prince Song, my master invites you in. Looks like my luck isn't bad. I didn't have to wait as long as I did at Li Shouzhong's place." Song Qing-shu smiled faintly. However, what caught his attention was that the gatekeeper's expression was a little strange when he mentioned his master. Originally, he wanted to sound the gatekeeper out, but soon another servant came out to lead the way, so he didn't have the chance to ask. "Fine, so what if it's a dragon's pool or a tiger's den?" Song Qing-shu shrugged, throwing his doubts to the back of his mind. After leading Song Qing-shu to the study, the servant told him that his master was waiting inside, then took his leave. When he pushed the door open, he was stunned. He had met Shimi Yuan once in the imperial court, so he naturally remembered his appearance. However, the person standing in the study wasn't him. In fact, it wasn't even a man. It was the red-clothed young lady from the restaurant. "It's you? It's you," both of them said in unison. "Are you Song Qing-shu?" The red-clothed young lady seemed to have forgotten the unpleasantness that happened in the inn before. She trotted over and looked at him for a while, nodding. "No wonder your martial arts are so high. Young lady you are." Song Qing-shu already had a guess in his heart. "Shimi Yuan is my father." The red-clothed young lady's answer made Song Qing-shu speechless. How could she call her father's name directly? However, considering her careless temper It was understandable. It turns out that you're Miss Shangyun. Yun had only one daughter, so he was cared for like a pearl in the palm. This was a well-known fact in Lin and City. Therefore, although she didn't introduce her name, Song Qing-shu had already known it clearly. However, although Yun had the naivety described in Dream of the Red Chamber, she was much more unruly and capricious than Yun. This difference might be caused by the change of family background. I heard that you went to the sky to pray for rain last night. Can you tell me how you did it? Yun blinked her big eyes and looked at Song Qing-shu curiously. That's just a coincidence. I've always been lucky. Although the principle of rain was not a secret in his previous life, it was still very useful to use it to render mysterious in this era. Song Qing-shu was not stupid enough to talk about it with strangers. I guess so. Yun felt as if a huge stone had been lifted from her heart. Her whole person relaxed, and there was even a charming smile on her face. Song Qing-shu couldn't help laughing. This little girl must be worried about her lover, for fear that someone was better than her lover. Chapter 1309. When the beggar sect members were talking about him in the restaurant, Yun was very angry and wanted to prove that Wei Ruolin was more outstanding. At that time, Song Qing-shu thought that she was Wei Ruolin's younger sister. He didn't know that she was actually her lover. Why are you looking for my father? Yun suddenly asked. This? Song Qing-shu hesitated for a moment and didn't say anything. He just replied, I'm here to discuss something with your father. TSK, do you think I don't know that you're being secretive? Yun snorted and couldn't help but roll her eyes at him. Isn't it just you phase matter? You want my father to help you? Song Qing-shu's expression changed. Although Yun was known for her naivety, she was never stupid. In addition, she grew up in such an environment, so her knowledge was naturally different from that of ordinary girls. Yes, it is as Miss said. There was nothing wrong with admitting it. Song Qing-shu smiled, knowing that she had something else to say. As expected, Yun's eyes flashed with a cunning light. Do you have a relationship with my father? Song Qing-shu shook his head. No. Yun's lips curled up slightly. What good will it do for my father if Machi Su falls from power? Song Qing-shu shrugged. It doesn't seem like it. Yun's smile grew even wider. Then, do you think my father will help you? Song Qing-shu rubbed his nose. He looked very melancholic. It doesn't seem very likely. Yun finally smiled. It's not that it's not likely, but it's impossible for him to help you. Song Qing-shu didn't mind. Miss Sure, you've said so much. I don't think it's just to tell me this. Yun gave him a "you're smart" look. If you agree to do something for me, I'll ask my father to help you after it's done. Song Qing-shu smiled. Even if your father dotes on you, how can he be influenced by you when it involves the prime minister? You don't have to worry about that. I have a way to make him agree. Yun raised her chin, her pretty face shining with confidence. Let's not talk about that for the time being. Song Qing-shu suddenly changed the topic. Tell me what you want me to do first. My promise is very valuable now. He had long since passed the age of casually agreeing to conditions, not to mention that the other party was not Zhao Min, so it was worth the risk. Fortunately, Yun didn't play word games like Zhao Min. She said, just accompany me to the beggar gang. That's it. Song Qing-shu couldn't believe it. It was so simple. At the same time, he finally realized why she was angry when he saved her in the restaurant. It turned out that she was just making things difficult for the disciples of the beggar gang, and then she was taken away by the masters of the beggar gang. It was a pity that he ruined her plan at the last moment. She's the daughter of a rich family. Why does she have to go to the beggar sect? Song Qing-shu couldn't help but doubt Song Sheng. He really couldn't associate a noble lady with a beggar. Of course, it's not that simple. You have to listen to my arrangements throughout the process. Yun replied. Listen to your arrangements? Song Qing-shu raised his eyebrows. I don't like to be used. Don't worry. I won't ask you to help me challenge the beggar gang. Yun seemed to know what he was worried about. I don't like to be led by the nose. Just tell me what I want to do. Song Qing-shu was still indifferent. Yun hesitated for a moment and then replied, I only need you to pretend to be tied up by me and come with me to the beggar gang. You don't have to worry about the rest." That's it. Song Qing-shu wasn't worried about being tied up at all. With his current martial arts, even if he was tied up by fine steel chains, he could still break free. Instead, what she wanted to do in the beggar gang was the most important thing. That's it. Sure, Shang-yun gave a definite answer. "If you have no objections, let's do it now." Now, Song Qing-shu thought that this girl was really vigorous and decisive. But he also wanted to end things here as soon as possible. "Okay, then I'll tie you up." Sure, Shang-yun blinked her eyes. "You won't blame me, right? Just tie me up," Song Qing-shu said lightly. There was something else in his eyes. Seeing his approval, Sure Shang-yun took out a hemp rope out of nowhere and began to tie him up. Song Qing-shu's eyes fell on the hemp rope, and his expression was thoughtful. He didn't say anything and even cooperated by putting his hands behind his back, letting her tie him up. Sure Shang-yun's fingers touched Song Qing-shu's chest. She showed a trace of surprise. "I didn't know that you were so gentle, but your muscles are quite strong." Song Qing-shu also said meaningfully, "I also didn't know that a dignified daughter like you could tie me up so professionally." Sure Shang-yun looked away and didn't answer. Instead, she continued to tie him up in silence. When the knot was finally tied, Sure Shang-yun suddenly stretched out her fingers and quickly sealed several major acupoints all over his body. "Miss, what do you mean?" Song Qing-shu's tone was extremely calm, as if he had already expected it. Noticing his calmness, Sure Shang-yun also felt a little guilty. She hurriedly checked the rope on his body and then breathed a sigh of relief. "The famous Golden Snake King is only SOSO. I just use a little trick to tie you up." Song Qing-shu chuckled. "Since you've heard of my name, you should know that with my skills, how can a mere rope tie me up?" Sure Shang-yun looked flustered, but she quickly calmed down. "You don't have to be deliberately mystifying. I've already sealed all your acupoints. Even if they weren't sealed, you wouldn't be able to break free from this immortal binding lock." Immortal binding lock. Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. He wasn't playing Investiture of the Gods, so what the hell was an immortal binding lock? This rope is made from the Tian Shan black silkworm silk. It was soaked in secret medicinal herbs for 49 days and then baked with a special technique. Finally, it was woven. It is impervious to fire and water and swords. No matter how high your martial arts are, you won't be able to break free. Sure Shang-yun proudly said. Song Qing-shu inwardly curled his lips. Impervious to swords, and swords was possible. After all, Dian also had a black silkworm treasure robe. It was indeed impervious to swords and swords, but impervious to fire and water was nonsense. In any case, he was a transmigrator who had been influenced by science. No matter how powerful the black silkworm silk was, it was still protein. Protein could burn very easily. His expression was as calm as usual. He didn't even try to break free. He just waited to see what would happen next. Big Brother Wei, Big Brother Wei. Sure, Shang-yun wasn't interested in paying attention to him. Instead, she excitedly shouted at a wall. Her voice was as soft as water and filled with affection. It was enough to make a person's bones go soft. The sound of a mechanism rang out, and the wall gradually moved away. It turned out that there was a secret room behind it. A handsome man dressed in white walked out from the shadows. Wei Rulin, although he hadn't seen her before, she had such a graceful bearing. Coupled with Sure Shang-yun's attitude, it wasn't hard for Song Qing-shu to guess her identity. Chapter 1310. Oh, Sure Shang-yun blushed and ran to her lover to hold his arm. "I didn't let him take advantage of me." Wei Rulin snorted, and her face was still a little pale. Song Qing-shu chuckled. "I heard Miss Sure praise you so much in the restaurant. I thought you were a great man, but I didn't expect that you would need your woman to use a honey trap on you. TSK, TSK, TSK. You are a scholar and a martial artist." "Shut up." Seeing her lover's gloomy face, Sure Shang-yun became anxious and couldn't help but glare at Song Qing-shu. "Miss Sure, you have to pay for what you did today." Song Qing-shu's tone was still as calm as ever, as if the person who was imprisoned was not him, but the other party. You don't have to waste your energy. I know you want to buy time to open your acupoints. Sure Shang Yun snorted. My grandfather is the emperor's tutor. He taught me a unique acupoint sealing technique. You won't be able to open it no matter how hard you try. The grandfather she mentioned was Shi Yuan's father, the emperor's tutor, Shi Hao. As the emperor's tutor, not only was his knowledge top-notch, but his martial arts were also unfathomable. Because of this identity, Shi Yuan's position had always been very important, and he was deeply favored by the emperor. Song Qingshu smiled faintly with a non-committal expression. Wei Ruolin didn't dare to take it lightly. This person's martial arts are too high. We have to be careful. As she spoke, she came to Song Qingshu's side and suddenly attacked after looking at him for a while. Wei Ruolin was relieved when she saw a few extremely thin pieces of ice shooting into his major acupoints. In this way, even if he opens his acupoints, his life is in my hands. Life and death talisman. Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows. He never expected that this top scholar, who was popular outside the Donghua Gate, would know the martial arts of the Xiaoyao sect. Wei Ruolin smiled. You are indeed the famous Golden Snake King. You can even recognize the mysterious life and death talisman. Since you can recognize the life and death talisman, you naturally know its effect. Those who are hit by the life-death notes can neither live nor die. Song Qingshu replied indifferently, but he was sneering in his heart. Last time in the Jin Kingdom, he had been tricked by Tang's sire, the saintess of the White Lotus cult. After forcing out the life-death talisman, he had completely understood the principle of this mysterious hidden weapon. Therefore, when Wei Ruolin's life-death talisman entered his body, it was instantly dissolved by his true qi. Of course, Wei Ruolin did not know all this. As for Shi Shang Yun's sealing acupoints, at his level of cultivation, it was not difficult for him to change acupoints. Moreover, he had cultivated the Taishan Sutra, so there was another mysterious method of circulating acupoints in his body that no one knew about. Even if his regular acupoints were sealed, there was no way he could be restrained. Speaking of which, the black natural silk immortal binding lock on his body was a bit troublesome. However, since he dared to let her tie him up, Song Qingshu naturally had a way to escape. The reason why he had been so calm was that he wanted to see what these two people were plotting. One was a rich young lady who wanted to go to the beggar gang, and the other was a top scholar from the Donghua school who actually knew the kung fu of the Xiaoyao sect. He felt that there was some kind of shocking conspiracy. It's good that you know. Although Wei Ruolin's expression was still somewhat cold, the excitement in his eyes could still be seen. After all, anyone would feel proud to be able to capture the world-famous Golden Snake King. Brother Wei, let's take him to the beggar gang now. Shi Shang Yun moved closer to Wei Ruolin and said sweetly. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. The truth was gradually coming to light. Wait a minute. Wei Ruolin suddenly turned around and looked at Song Qingshu. Feeling the fanaticism in his eyes, Song Qingshu felt a chill run down his spine. It's useless for you to look at me like that. I don't have a fetish for men. Bah! Shi Shang Yun was ashamed and angry at the same time. She glared at him fiercely. My brother Wei is not that kind of person. Song Qingshu smiled. You may know a person's face, but you don't know his heart. This guy has soft skin and tender flesh. Maybe he likes men. You. Shi Shang Yun was furious. She pulled out her dagger and wanted to rush over, but she was stopped halfway. Wei Ruolin looked at Song Qingshu, and a haze appeared on her handsome face. She said coldly, I didn't expect the dignified Golden Snake King to act like a shrew in the marketplace when he's at his wit's end. Song Qingshu was not offended at all. I'm just making a logical deduction. Your feminine appearance really does look like a rabbit. Shi Shang Yun could not bear it any longer. Brother Wei, let me kill him. It's the same to bring his head to the beggar gang. Hearing her words, Song Qingshu narrowed his eyes. He became more and more curious. What are they going to do in the beggar gang? Wei Ruolin shook his head. If we kill him first, what if the beggar gang doesn't admit to it? It's better to bring him there and act according to the circumstances. But that would be too easy on him. Shi Shang Yun glared at Song Qingshu. It was obvious that she was very angry at him for slandering her lover. Don't worry, I have a way to punish him. Wei Rulin walked up to Song Qingshu. She could not contain the excitement in her eyes as she said, "You won't be able to survive if you fall into the hands of the beggar sect. It would be a pity to waste your astounding skills. Let me carry them forward for you." She pressed her hands on his clavicle acupoint. A strong suction came from her palms. Dark North divine skill. Song Qingshu frowned. Golden Snake King is really knowledgeable. Wei Rulin raised her eyebrows as she felt the steady flow of inner energy into her body. The smile on her face became even more obvious. "I can't help but admire you. You're still so calm, even at this point. You have the demeanor of a legend who would remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of you. Instead of crying and regretting, it's better to face it with a smile." Sure, Shangyun could not help but look at Song Qingshu's calm tone. She suddenly found that this man had an admirable temperament. Wei Rulin felt uncomfortable when she noticed Sure Shangyun's change in expression. She snorted. "Let's see how long you can last." She increased the suction force. Of course, Song Qingshu had not reached the legendary realm of forgetfulness. He had a solution long ago. In fact, he could imitate the method he used to deal with Li Qingluo. At that time, Li Qingluo also tried to use the Dark North divine skill to absorb his inner energy. In the end, he transferred his joyful vital qi to her. What happened next was delightful. It was a pity that Wei Rulin was a man. Whenever Song Qingshu thought of certain scenes, he would feel a chill run down his spine. He immediately dismissed the idea of using the joyful vital energy. Instead, he adopted another method to deal with this situation. That was to simulate a virtual vital energy and use a special technique to make it appear extremely vigorous. However, in reality, the amount of vital energy was very little. It was similar to the fluffy bread from his previous life. It looked rather big, but the actual amount of vital energy was actually very little. Wei Rulin was obviously fooled. She thought that she was absorbing a majestic innate qi, but in fact it was just Song Qingshu secretly changing the form of his innate qi. The amount of inner force he absorbed was pitifully little. Thanks to Bai Hailang and other enthusiastic readers for their tips. Chapter 1311. Looking at the scene in front of her, Shi Shangyun could not help but ask, "Aren't we being too cruel?" Although she was not a Jianghu person, she knew how important a person's inner energy was to those who practiced martial arts. After all, she was a carefree girl and had many heroic thoughts in her heart. She would rather kill Song Qingshu and give him a dignified ending than humiliate him like this. Cruel. Wei Rulin's lips curled up. The weak are prey to the strong. If we fall into his hands, we won't have a good ending. Moreover, his martial arts skills are too high. We can't rest easy until we destroy his cultivation. Seeing that her fiancé had made up his mind, Shi Shangyun opened her mouth but did not say anything in the end. After a while, Wei Rulin felt that Song Qingshu's body was empty. Satisfied, he let go of his hand. What a strong inner energy. From now on, with my cultivation and the Golden Snake King's power, I'm afraid no one in Jianghu is my match. Ha 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 ha. Seeing her fiancé suddenly become a stranger, Shi Shangyun could not help but frown, but she quickly relaxed. After all, she also hoped that her fiancé would become stronger. Song Qingshu deliberately pretended to be weak, but in his heart, he was sneering. Let's go. Bring him to the beggar clan. Wei Rulin was now unprecedentedly confident. Not to mention going to the beggar clan, he would not feel any pressure even if he went to Mount Hua for the sword tournament. Soon, Wei Rulin found a horse carriage and threw Song Qingshu in the corner of the carriage. He and Shi Shangyun sat on the other side and chatted. All these years, Wei Rulin had always had a big task in his mind, but this task was as difficult as ascending to heaven. It was not until today, when he absorbed Song Qingshu's power and thought about going to the beggar clan, that he was halfway to success. That big task in his heart could not help but be filled with heroism. The boulder in his heart was slightly lifted. Only now did he notice the scenery that he usually neglected. He saw that Shi Shangyun had almond-shaped eyes and rosy cheeks. Her skin was fair and rosy, and she was looking at him affectionately. Wei Rulin's heart was moved. He could not help but hook her chin and kiss her tender and beautiful lips. However, just as he was about to kiss her, Shi Shangyun turned her head to the side and stretched out her hand to stop him from taking even half a step forward. Her cheeks were already as red as fire, and her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Big brother Wei, we have been childhood sweethearts. In my heart, I am already yours. However, we haven't bowed to heaven and earth yet. After we get married, you can do whatever you want. By the time she had finished speaking, Shi Shangyun was blushing so much that her head was almost touching her knees. Song Qingshu looked on coldly from the side, and he couldn't help but laugh when he saw this scene. Shi Shangyun was fiery like a tomboy, and he didn't expect that there would be such a scene of a little girl. Only then did Wei Rulin remember that Shi Shangyun came from a prestigious family, and her family had always been very strict. Even though she had long been in love with him, and would often hold hands with him on a daily basis, she was absolutely not allowed to take things one step further. If it was an ordinary woman, Wei Rulin could have gotten her way with just a few sweet words and honeyed words. However, Shi Shangyun's identity was too special, and he still needed to rely on Shi Hao and Shi Miyuan's support in the officialdom in the future. If he angered them because of his impatience, then he would really lose something big for a small gain. In any case, Shi Miyuan had already privately betrothed his daughter to him, and Shi Shangyun was also deeply in love with him. Wei Rulin understood that Shi Shangyun would be his sooner or later, so there was no need to rush at this moment. Little sister Shangyun, it's my fault. Wei Rulin immediately apologized. Shi Shangyun smiled shyly and said, "No, it's nothing." Looking at her delicate face, Wei Rulin's index finger moved again, and he quickly suppressed the romantic thoughts in his heart and said, "After today's matter, I will ask father-in-law to let us get married as soon as possible." Shi Shangyun was embarrassed and happy at the same time. She blushed and said, "My father might not necessarily let me marry you." Wei Rulin laughed. "Who else can you marry if not me?" Looking at the two of them playing around intimately, Song Qingshu smiled, and his expression became quite playful. After an unknown amount of time, the carriage suddenly stopped, and an angry shout could be heard from outside. "Who are you? How dare you trespass into the beggar clan's headquarters?" Wei Rulin and Shi Shangyun got out of the carriage with Song Qingshu and said to the beggar clan's disciple who was blocking the carriage, "We're here to see Chief Shi." The beggar sneered. "Do you know the chief's identity? You can't just see him just because you want to." Shi Shangyun was furious. "Why are you talking nonsense with him? Let's just go straight in and see who dares to stop us." Hearing her words, a group of beggar clan's disciples immediately walked over with weapons in their hands and faintly surrounded them. Wei Rulin stopped Shi Shangyun and said, "We are gang leader Shi's friends, and this young lady is gang leader Shi's elder sister. I hope that you can go in and pass on the message. Gang leader Shi will definitely see us." Song Qingshu frowned, thinking that Shi Huolong had been famous in Jianghu for decades, and Shi Shangyun was so young. How could she be his sister? But he reacted quickly and immediately remembered that Shi Huolong had been practicing the 18 dragon-subduing palms and later died in the hands of Chang Kuan. Now the chief of the beggar clan in Jiangnan should be his daughter, Shi Hongshi, whom he had seen once at the lion-slaying assembly. Song Qingshu's thoughts became clearer and clearer. Shi Hongshi, Shi Shangyun. He didn't expect that as a high official of the imperial court, Shi Miyuan would actually secretly control such a big sect like the beggar clan. He had to admire these people in the southern Song dynasty. They were indeed famous for being treacherous officials in later generations, and each of them had a secret pawn in Jianghu. Wan Shichun, Zhang Jun's loyal army, Jia Shidao's chivalry island, and now Shi Miyuan also had an ambiguous relationship with the beggar clan. Even a child wouldn't believe that they didn't have any ulterior motives. No wonder Shi Shangyun deliberately provoked the beggar clan's disciples in the restaurant. Perhaps she wanted to take the opportunity to enter the beggar clan. On the surface, It seemed that he had saved her, but in fact, he had ruined her plan. No wonder she not only didn't thank him, but was angry. But Song Qing-shu soon had another doubt. Since Shi Shangyun was Shi Hongshu's sister, why didn't they just send a message? Why did they have to make it so complicated? When those beggar clan's disciples heard Shi Shangyun's identity, they couldn't help but look at her a few more times. The leaders said angrily, "Nonsense, this lady has white skin and such a beautiful face. Our chief is dignified and solemn. How could she be her sister?" As he said this, he secretly winked at one of his men. The man understood and quietly left to go up the mountain to send a message. Song Qing-shu laughed involuntarily when he heard this. Shi Hongshu's appearance could be said to be still fresh in his memory. She was ugly. Her nostrils were pointed to the sky. Her wide mouth revealed 2 large front teeth, giving her a ferocious appearance. Chapter 13:12. The dragon has 9 sons. Each of them is different. Who said that sisters must look the same? If Wei Rulin had not heard him praise her fiancé's beauty, she would have exploded. Besides, your clan leader Shi is not her real sister. So what if she looks different? Seeing that the disciple was about to say something, Shi Shangyun became impatient and said, "You keep making excuses. Did something happen to my sister?" The disciple's face changed slightly, and he smiled. "Miss must be joking. Since you're a clan leader's sister, please come in." He signaled his men to open a gap and led the way. Noticing his reaction, Song Qing-shu's expression changed slightly. This show was getting more and more interesting. Wei Rulin and Shi Shangyun looked at each other and nodded slightly. Then they escorted Song Qing-shu and followed. Along the way to the north, Wei Rulin whispered to Shi Shangyun, "The beggar clan has set up checkpoints along the way. The security is very tight." While she was talking, she quietly pointed to the checkpoints for Shi Shangyun. Of course, Song Qing-shu did not need her to point them out. None of the beggar clan's checkpoints behind trees, in the grass, in the mountains, or beside the rocks could escape his eyes. They walked for another 1 or 2 li and saw that every 3 steps there was a checkpoint, and every 5 steps there was a checkpoint. Although these people's martial arts were not high, it was not easy to avoid their eyes in broad daylight. This tight security was indeed worthy of being the headquarters of the beggar clan. Very soon they arrived at a large temple. They saw a plaque on the door with the words Mithra Buddha Temple. The temple looked solemn and magnificent. The floor of the main hall was filled with beggar clan members. There were at least 300 of them. These people were sitting inwards as if they did not see them. There were 5 prayer mats in the hall. Obviously, they were waiting for someone to come. Although there were 300 or 400 people in the hall, there was not the slightest sound. It was completely different from the usual chaotic scene of people fighting for food in a restaurant. Wei Rulin sighed and said, "The beggar clan has been famous for several hundred years. Although it has declined in recent times, it has not completely disappeared. The chaos in the restaurant is just the usual situation. It seems like the elders of the sect are very strict in enforcing the law." Before Shi Shangyun had time to reply, suddenly she heard someone in the hall shouted, "Zhang Bo Longtu has arrived." The crowd of beggars stood up together. A 9-pouch elder who looked like a scholar walked out slowly with a broken alms bowl in his hand and stood on the right. Someone else shouted, "Zhang Bang Longtu arrives." A 9-pouch elder who looked like Zhou Tsong raised an iron staff with both hands and strode out, standing on the left. The law enforcement elder has arrived. A thin and small old beggar walked out, holding a broken piece of bamboo in his hand. His footsteps were light and nimble, not stirring up a speck of dust as he walked. The elder of imparting techniques has arrived. This time, the one who came out was an old beggar with white hair and a white beard. His hands were empty, and his footwork showed that his cultivation was extremely profound. Song Qing-shu could not help but sigh at the beggar clan's profound background. At the lion-slaying assembly, the elder of imparting techniques was killed by Chang Kuin's subordinates using secret projectiles, while the law enforcement elder and Zhang Bang Longtu died under his Ju'in by Guzhang. He did not expect that several new beggars would be selected so quickly. Their cultivation was not inferior to the previous beggars. Wei Rulin's expression also turned cold. She quietly stepped forward and shielded Shi Shangyun behind her. The four old beggars sat down on 4 praying mats, leaving the middle one open. At first, Song Qingshu thought that Shi Hongshi would come out next. Who would have thought that the one who came out was a young man of about 30 years of age? He was also wearing the beggar clan's uniform, but his clothes were very clean. Song Qingshu secretly thought, although Shi Hongshi is only a little girl who does not understand anything, she is, after all, the clan leader in name. How come I feel that she is not just a mere figurehead? But what surprised him even more was that he knew this young man. Who are you? Where is your clan leader, Shi? Although she was already mentally prepared, Shi Shangyun could not help but ask. The young man cupped his hands in obeisance. My surname is Chun, and my name is Yuliang. I am now temporarily acting as the clan leader to handle the affairs of the clan. The playful expression on Song Qingshu's face became even more intense. It turned out to be an old acquaintance, Chen Yuliang. It should be known that the original owner of this body was the most outstanding figure of the 3rd generation of the Wudong clan. He was a popular candidate for the next leader of the Wudong clan. It was Chen Yuliang who led him astray, one wrong step after another, and in the end, he could not turn back and lost his reputation. You were so badly hurt by him. Today, I have to help you get back some interest. Song Qingshu's eyes gradually turned cold, but he was not in a hurry to act. He wanted to see the dogs bite each other first. But what puzzled him the most was that Chen Yuliang had been kicked out of the beggar clan. Why was he back now? And looking at his posture, it seemed that he had complete control of the beggar clan. Nonsense. Your clan leader is obviously my sister, Shi Hongshi. Hearing him call himself the acting clan leader, Shi Shangyun immediately objected. So it is clan leader Shi's sister. Chen Yuliang made a symbolic obeisance with his hands in obeisance. Miss, you may not know this, but at the lion-slaying assembly, our clan leader lost Chuan Gong, law enforcement elder, and Zhang Banglong too. It could be said that our losses were heavy. Clan leader Shi blamed herself for this. She thought that it was her own incompetent leadership that led to the decline of the beggar clan. In addition, she was not in the mood to fight in Jianghu, so she took the opportunity to resign. Nonsense. How could Sister Hongshi admit her fault and resign? Shi Shangyun trembled with anger. She knew that Shi Huolong was a chess piece her father Shi Miyuan had placed in the beggar clan. Who would have thought that he would be killed by Chang Kuan? In a hurry, Shi Miyuan could only find Shi Huolong's daughter, Shi Hongshi, to replace him. At the same time, he also asked the yellow-robed woman to come forward and support her as the clan leader. Because Shi Miyuan had been promoting Neo-Confucianism, Jinshan Academy had always had a good impression of him. Naturally, they would not refuse such a request. Unfortunately, good times did not last long. Not long after Shi Hongshi became the clan leader, before she could sit firmly in her position, they lost contact with her. Shi Miyuan was angry and anxious about this matter. He could not ask the yellow-robed woman to come forward every time something happened. Previously, he could say that he pushed the boat with the current, but if he asked her to come forward again, his political enemies would soon know about his arrangements in the beggar clan. Seeing her father sighing all day, Shi Shangyun wanted to share her father's worries, so she volunteered to take this task. All the elders witnessed this matter. Miss, you can ask them if you don't believe me. Chen Yuliang seemed to have already expected this situation. He calmly pointed to the 9-pouch elders next to him and said, seeing the eyes of those elders, how could Shi Shangyun not understand that they were either bought by Chen Yuliang or his trusted subordinates? How could they tell the truth? Sure enough, the 9-pouch elders opened their mouths one by one, and what they said was not much different from what Chen Yuliang said. Song Qingshu secretly sighed. Chen Yuliang was really a talent. Not only did he make a comeback, but he also firmly controlled the beggar clan in a short time. He was indeed a fierce man who fought with Zhu Yuan Zhang for the world. Wait, now the beggar clan had Chen Yuliang, and the Ming dynasty had Zhu Yuan Zhang. Then what the hell was the Ming Empire before Ajio? Song Qingshu's expression instantly became very interesting. In the end, he could only explain it with a butterfly effect. Anyway, the world was already chaotic enough, so what if it was a little more chaotic? Shi Shangyun took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in her heart. In that case, may I ask where Sister Hongshi is now? Chapter 13:13. After Miss Hongshi resigned from the position of gang leader, she brought her father's remains back to her hometown to be buried. We don't know exactly where he is now, Chen Yuliang replied calmly. Song Qingshu sighed inwardly when he heard Chen Yuliang address Shi Hongshi as Miss Hongshi instead of gang leader. Given Chen Yuliang's vicious and merciless nature, Shi Hongshi was probably already dead. Shi Shangyun obviously realized this as well. She glared at him in shock and anger. However, Chen Yuliang's reason was reasonable, so she couldn't say anything. Don't continue to be entangled in this. Wei Rulin pressed her shoulder, motioning for her to calm down. She then raised her head and said to Chen Yuliang and the others, "As far as I know, you've spread the word that whoever can avenge Elder Chuan Gong and the others will be elected as the new gang leader. Before that, you'll be in charge of the gang leader's affairs, right?" "That's right." Chen Yuliang raised his head proudly. This was his brilliant plan. After all, he had driven Shi Hongshi out of the beggar clan, which attracted a lot of criticism. In order to stop people from talking, he had come up with this plan. In any case, in his opinion, with Song Qingshu's current reputation in martial arts, it was impossible for him to avenge Chuan Gong Elder and the others. This meant that he could be the acting clan leader for an indefinite period of time. After a long time, when he had complete control over the entire beggar clan, he could find a random excuse to become the real clan leader. Wei Rulin was waiting for this. She secretly poked Shi Shangyun and nodded. She stepped forward and pulled Song Qingshu out from behind her. "All right, now that I've brought Song Qingshu here, according to the agreement, I'm the new gang leader." Song Qingshu was suddenly enlightened. He knew the ins and outs of the whole thing. It turned out that they had planned to capture him, to fight for the position of the beggar gang's clan leader. It seemed that Chen Yuliang had shot himself in the foot this time. Upon hearing Shi Shangyun's words, the beggar sect's disciples in the room were in an uproar. The 9 pouch elders also stood up and looked in their direction. Chen Yuliang was also shocked. His attention was attracted by Shi Shangyun and Wei Rulin just now, so he didn't notice the people behind them. Now, for a moment, his expression was extremely unsightly. When Song Qingshu was pulled into the beggar sect by Chen Yuliang, many members of the beggar sect had seen him. Soon everyone was talking about him. Chen Yuliang also reacted quickly. He immediately sneered and said, "Song Qingshu, that bastard's martial arts are matchless. How could he fall into the hands of a little girl like you? I don't know where you found someone similar to him to deceive us." His words were reasonable, and the beggar gang disciples secretly nodded. After all, they all knew Song Qingshu's martial arts, and they really did not believe that he would be caught by a little girl. "Humph," Shi Shangyun snorted. "Although Song Qingshu's martial art skill is high, he is indeed a lecherous person. I only used a little honey trap, and he was blinded by lust. How difficult would it be to catch him?" As soon as she explained, many people in the room believed her immediately. Song Qingshu was the beggar sect's archenemy. In these years, they had done a lot of research on him. They knew that he was lustful by nature. If Shi Hongshi was not so ugly, perhaps someone would have encouraged her to use a honey trap to take revenge. Hearing the whispers of the people around him, Song Qingshu's face turned as black as charcoal. He did not expect that in their eyes, he was a lustful thief, and his reputation was so unbearable. Seeing that this question did not stump her, Chen Yuliang rolled his eyes and continued. "The precondition for the person who avenges Chuan Gong Zhonglao and the others to succeed as the clan leader is that the person must be a member of the beggar sect. Miss, your clothes are luxurious, and you look like a rich young lady. How can you satisfy this condition?" Shi Shangyun was obviously prepared for this. She directly replied, "Shi Hongshi is my younger sister, and your previous clan leader, Shi Huolong, is my uncle. Are you saying that I am not a member of the beggar sect? This is only your side of the story. Who can prove it?" Chen Yuliang laughed evilly. He had already made up his mind to first muddle through this obstacle, and then slowly take care of them. I knew you would say this. Sure, Shang-yun took out several letters from her bosom. These are the letters that Uncle and Hongsher Mimi wrote to me. Everyone will understand once you read them. Someone had already come over and handed the letters to the 9 pouch elders. As they read, they secretly nodded and said, "Correct, these are clan leader Shi's notes. Let me have a look." Chen Yuliang stared at the letters with a gloomy expression. Sure, Shang-yun chuckled and said, "Don't think about destroying the evidence. I still have a lot of letters like this." Having his thoughts exposed, Chen Yuliang could not help but feel suffocated. However, he was a crafty person after all. After a brief moment of panic, he immediately thought of a way to deal with it. "Very well, if you want to be the clan leader, you must first kill Song Qing-shu. The clan's agreement is to avenge the technique imparting elders and the others before you can assume the position of the new clan leader. Right now you're only bringing him here. It is far from being avenged." Sure, Shang-yun angrily said, "Do you think I'm stupid? What if I kill him and you don't want to admit it? You are rambling on and on. Is it because you are afraid that someone else will snatch your position as the acting clan leader?" Chen Yuliang sternly said, "If you don't kill Song Qing-shu first, who knows if you have colluded with him beforehand to seize the opportunity to usurp our clan leader's position. At that time, not only will the beggar clan not be able to avenge itself, but the hundreds of years of foundation will also fall into the hands of the enemy. Then I will become the beggar clan's eternal sinner. Compared with the foundation of the beggar clan, a little criticism is nothing." What a talent! Song Qing-shu couldn't help but admire Chen Yuliang. Chen Yuliang spoke with a righteous and awe-inspiring manner. If Song Qing-shu hadn't known Chen Yuliang's character beforehand, he might have really been deceived by him. In the main hall, the crowd of beggars whispered to each other. They all felt that what Chen Yuliang said was very likely to be true. Many of them even openly shouted, "Elder Chen, we believe you." That's right. Maybe it is Song Qing-shu's evil plan. He is hooked up with a lover surnamed Shi and wants to seize the opportunity to seize the beggar clan's power. Song Qing-shu is a sinister and cunning man. Who knows if he is really under control? How could this woman be clan leader Shi's niece? In the end, she is blinded by a man and actually helps the enemy of the beggar clan. Song Qing-shu was speechless when he heard this. He thought to himself, "I'm also a victim from the beginning to the end. I'm really speechless at being implicated." The beggar clan's members were not well-mannered to begin with. All kinds of vulgar words came out of their mouths. Sure, Shang-yun was a dignified daughter of a rich family. How could she have heard such things? She was so angry that her face turned red. Her bulging chest rose and fell rapidly. It was obvious that she was on the verge of exploding. Song Qing-shu was speechless. He thought to himself, "What if this guy takes out his anger on me? Should I make a move or not?" Fortunately, Shi Shang-yun and Wei Rulin were not stupid enough to give up the bargaining chips in their hands. They did not want to be led by the nose by Chen Yuliang. Shi Shang-yun still wanted to argue with the other party. However, Wei Rulin was already impatient. Why do you need to talk so much nonsense with him? Leave it to me. As soon as she finished speaking, her figure flashed and she stretched out her hand to grab the major acupuncture point on Chen Yuliang's shoulder. Chapter 13-14. Chen Yuliang was not good at martial arts. Although the martial arts of the other 9 pouch elders were not bad, Wei Rulin might have been a little afraid of them. But he had just absorbed Song Qing-shu's internal energy and was in a stage where he was bursting with confidence. He felt that no hero in the world could match him for more than 3 rounds, so he did not have the patience to argue with Chen Yuliang. Instead, he used his strong points to attack the enemy's weak points. Seeing him pounce on him, Chen Yuliang hurriedly retreated, but he was overjoyed. He shouted, "These people really have ulterior motives. Everyone, take them down." The people who were originally watching immediately turned to Chen Yuliang's side, shouting angrily and rushing over. But Wei Rulin's accumulated power attack was very powerful. With a flash of light, those people pounced on empty air. They only saw a blur in front of them, and the enemy had already appeared in front of Chen Yuliang. But the 9 pouch elders next to Chen Yuliang had already reacted and blocked him with a roar. Almost in an instant, the two sides had already exchanged more than 10 palms. Zhang Bang Long Tu screamed and fell to the side like a kite with a broken string. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive, but there was no doubt that he had lost the ability to fight. The law enforcement elder and Zhang Bo Long Tu both retreated a few steps with blood at the corners of their mouths. It was obvious that this exchange had taken their breath away. Wei Rulin tried to follow up with another attack and completely subdue the opponent, who knew that the Chuan Gong elder's face was red, but he did not give way. He met force with force 3 times, and with each palm, blood flowed from his mouth. After 3 palms, the Chuan Gong elder spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood, but he had successfully blocked Wei Rulin. The 18 dragon subduing palms truly lives up to its reputation. Wei Rulin was also not feeling well at this time. He had defeated 4 experts in a short period of time, and his qi and blood were in turmoil. Song Qing-shu looked on with cold eyes. He could tell that these several 9-pouch elders' internal energy was not much different from the elders he had seen before the lion-slaying assembly. He had no choice but to admire the beggar clan's deep foundation. They were able to find several qualified replacements so quickly. It should be known that the Chuan Gong elder was in existence who had fought force with one of the Xianming elders. At that time, their skills were equal, but because of the Xianming divine palm's cold yin attribute, the Chuan Gong elder suffered a great loss. Zfa Zhonglau's cultivation level was slightly lower. Zhang Bo Long Tu and Zhang Bang Long Tu's cultivation level was even lower, but they could be considered first-rate martial art masters in Jianghu. In the past, when Zhao Min brought the Xianming elders to the beggar clan to stir up trouble, Chuan Gong Zhonglao and Zhang Bang Long Tu joined hands to deal with He Bi Wang. Zfa Zhonglao and Zhang Bo Long Tu fought Lu Zhangke. It could be said that they were evenly matched. Song Qing-shu had fought against the Xianming elders. He knew that these 2 men were the touchstones of the real top martial art masters. Looking at the whole Jianghu, not many people could defeat these 2 martial brothers if they joined hands. But these 4 elders of the beggar clan were on par with them. It was obvious that their martial arts skill was very high. Wei Rulin adjusted her breathing slightly and straightened out her qi. Then, she hastily stepped forward to take the life of imparting techniques elder. Unfortunately, the law enforcement elder and Zhang Bo Long Tu had already recovered by this time. So, they joined hands to stop her. After several moves, imparting techniques elder also adjusted his breathing and joined the battle with a red face. Wei Rulin frowned and used her killing moves several times. But just now, the elders had suffered a hidden loss and lost Zhang Bang Long Tu. Now that they were on guard, how could they be hit so easily? The 3 elders did not seek to gain merit, but to avoid making mistakes. They knew that they were relying on their home ground advantage, and they had the advantage in numbers. If the stalemate continued, it would only become more and more advantageous for them. Because the gap in their martial arts skills was too big, the rest of the beggar clan disciples wanted to help, but they could not intervene. So, they could only turn their attention to Shi Shangyun. Seeing them rushing over, Shi Shangyun's expression changed. She hastily retreated, trying to lean against the wall to avoid being attacked from all sides. Unfortunately, the main hall was full of beggar clan disciples, so it was easier said than done to retreat to the wall. Soon, both sides were fighting. Shi Shangyun knew that she was no match for them, so she could only rely on her lightness kung fu to dodge everywhere to buy time. She hoped that her lover would finish off those old men and come back to save her. Looking at the chaos in the main hall, Song Qing-shu could not help but laugh. It seemed that his face was really harmless. No one was rushing towards him, but instead, they were all rushing towards Shi Shangyun. Could it be that they saw me tied up? While Song Qing-shu was letting his imagination run wild, suddenly, a beggar clan disciple raised a knife and rushed towards him. Song Qing-shu's eyes lit up. When the disciple saw his ink-black eyes, he could not help but be startled. Then, He changed his direction and rushed towards Shi Shangyun. Flags can't be raised randomly. Song Qing-shu did not know whether to laugh or cry. After a while, Shi Shangyun cried out in pain. Her leg was hit by a bamboo stick, and she fell to the ground. When she wanted to get up, there were already countless weapons on her neck. Hearing her fiancé's cry, Wei Rulin was shocked. She subconsciously looked in the direction of her fiancé and found that she had already been captured. Wei Rulin took a deep breath, and his handsome face flushed red. It was obvious that he had already used 120% of his martial power to subdue these elders. As long as he could control them, Shi Shangyun would not be in any danger. Feeling the sudden increase in his imposing manner, the elders were horrified. They could even feel the surging martial power in his body. Even if the three of them joined forces, they might not be able to compete with him. Seeing the three elders' frightened expression, Wei Rulin grinned. He was about to take advantage of the situation to pursue and attack. Suddenly, his complexion changed. It turned out that the majestic true qi in his body had suddenly disappeared without a trace. The three elders were prepared to close their eyes and wait for death. Who would have thought that there would be such a sudden turn of events? After all, they had lived for decades and had climbed up step by step from the bottom. They were very experienced. They instantly attacked Wei Rulin's body. Wah! Wei Rulin spat out a mouthful of blood and lay on the ground with a weary expression. His hair had long been knocked out, and his handsome face was drained of blood. He struggled a few times but could not get up. His face was full of disbelief, and he muttered, "How is this possible? How is this possible?" Song Qing-shu, who was far away, smiled. As the saying goes, the evils you bring upon yourself are the hardest to bear. Who asked you to be so greedy as to absorb my internal energy? How can my martial power be so easily absorbed? During this period of time, he had observed Wei Rulin with the cold eyes of a bystander. He could see that Wei Rulin was indeed worthy of being called the top scholar in both literature and martial arts. He was indeed a brilliant person and had practiced the martial arts of the free and unfettered faction to an incomparably proficient level. If he were to fight seriously with the four elders of the beggar clan, he would be able to defeat them within 100 moves. However, he had courted death by absorbing his internal energy. He was confused by the majestic true qi and thought that his martial power was far superior to his opponent's. Every attack was a head-on collision, and he tried to defeat his opponent in the shortest time possible. Finally, his true qi backfired. Brother Wei, Shi Shangyun saw that her lover had gained the upper hand just a moment ago, and she was secretly happy. However, the next moment, she saw him vomiting blood and falling to the ground. She was panic-stricken and worried, and could not help but cry out. "Ha!" Chun Yuliang walked out with a long laugh and said, "Guards, kill these two madmen who conspired to seize the position of the clan leader. You can't kill us." Shi Shangyun saw that her lover did not respond, and she did not know whether he was dead or alive. At this moment, she was terrified and regretful. "Oh, why don't you tell me why I can't kill you?" Chun Yuliang sneered. Chapter 13-15. Shi Shangyun's words silenced the entire hall. The beggar gang members looked at each other. After all, although they were powerful in Jianghu, they rarely win against the imperial court. Moreover, the Shanyang beggar gang, led by Huang Rong, had a good relationship with the Song court. The other branches also had a good relationship with the imperial court. If this woman was really the daughter of the censor, they would be in big trouble. Once they did anything to her, the imperial court would be furious. None of them could bear the consequences. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, Chun Yuliang's heart skipped a beat. Under normal circumstances, he did not want to get into conflict with the people of the imperial court. However, he had already offended Shi Shangyun and Shi Hongshi. In addition to the information that Shi Hongshi had revealed earlier, that Shi Hongshi was her younger sister, this matter was serious. Even if he let them go this time, the Shi clan would not let him off because of Shi Hongshi. After thinking about the consequences, Chun Yuliang made up his mind and said, "What a joke. How could the daughter of the censor have anything to do with our beggar gang? I don't know where this wild girl came from. Look at yourself. Do you look like a daughter of an official at all? The beggars all nodded. They had never seen a daughter of an official before. They only knew some pitiful descriptions from dramas. They only thought that the daughters of an official were well-educated and gentle. How could this noisy woman in front of them look like a daughter of an official at all? Song Qingshu found that he admired Chen Yuliang more and more. His grasp of people's hearts was really at the level of a member of the royal family. With just a few words, he had turned the situation around and controlled everyone's minds. Shi Shangyun was a flower that grew up in a greenhouse. When it came to changing words, she could not compare to Chen Yuliang. Chen Yuliang knew that today's matter could not be resolved peacefully. He secretly wanted to kill Shi Shangyun and knew that he could not let Shi Shangyun leave alive. He looked at her carefully and suddenly had an idea when he saw her beautiful face. Chen Yuliang walked up to Shi Shangyun. At this time, her acupoints had already been sealed and she was sitting on the ground listlessly. Chen Yuliang waved his hand to signal the beggar clan disciples beside him to stand down. He squatted down in front of her and reached out to pinch her chin. That smooth touch made his heart flutter. TSK, 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 the daughter of an official's family is indeed delicate and tender. It would be a pity to just kill her like this. His voice was so low that only Shi Shangyun, who was right next to him, could hear him. Hearing the impudence in his tone, Shi Shangyun was both embarrassed and angry. What do you want? Hee. I have never been a person who is greedy for beauty, but since you're going to die anyway, it would be a waste to just die like this. It just so happens that I haven't tasted the taste of an official's daughter, so I might as well make the best use of it. Chen Yuliang moved closer to her ear and whispered, "Shameless, despicable." Shi Shangyun had never been molested like this. Her pretty face suddenly turned red. "If you dare to touch a hair of mine, my grandfather and my father will never let you go." The beggar clan disciples not far away looked at each other. Because they were far away and Chen Yuliang deliberately lowered his voice, they did not know what had happened to make Shi Shangyun so angry. But these days, Chen Yuliang's prestige was quite high. They just thought that he had his own ideas, so no one went up to stop him. "Do you think they know what's going on?" Chen Yuliang sneered. "They know that I came to the beggar clan this time. If anything happens to me, they will definitely bury the whole beggar clan with me." At this time, Shi Shangyun was really afraid. Usually in Lin City, people would give her some respect for her grandfather and father. In addition, her kung fu was good, and she had always been domineering. It could be said that she was a female overlord. God knows how many playboys have been bullied by her. Those people either had scruples about the power of the Shi family, or because she was young and beautiful, so they did not care about her. But now, the power of the Shi family was useless, and beauty would bring disaster. She was really afraid. Subconsciously, she looked at Wei Rulin in the distance, as if asking for help, hoping that her almighty lover could come and save her. But she was disappointed. Wei Rulin was lying on the ground with disheveled hair, as if she had lost her soul. She did not even look at them. In fact, even if he noticed what happened here, he could not do anything. Shi Shangyun's kung fu was not weak, so she could naturally see that he was seriously injured. It was already good enough that he could barely keep his life. "Does he know that you came to the beggar clan?" Chen Yuliang frowned slightly, thinking that this was really a little troublesome. But soon, he came up with a plan. He laughed and said, "So what if he knows? Anyway, there's a ready-made scapegoat here. When the time comes, we can just put all the blame on him." "Scapegoat? Who?" Shi Shangyun looked confused. She followed Chen Yuliang's gaze and saw Song Qingshu, who was tied up not far away. Song Qingshu also had an expression of F***ck a dog. He just wanted to watch the show from the side, but he didn't expect to be involved in a dispute. Even though Chen Yuliang deliberately lowered his voice, how could he hide it from his ears? He clearly heard the whole sequence of events from the side. "Chen, this is not very kind of you. You have finished enjoying yourself, but now you want me to be the scapegoat?" Song Qingshu said angrily. "Brother Song, You and I are considered brothers. Don't worry. When the time comes, I will let you have a good time. As the saying goes, even if I die under a peony flower, I will still be a romantic ghost. I treat you well, right? Chen Yuliang chuckled. It would be an exaggeration to say that they were brothers. However, the two of them did have quite a deep friendship back then. Of course, it was mostly because Chen Yuliang had been constantly manipulating him, turning the young master of Wudong's sect, who had a bright future ahead of him, into the scum of the martial arts world. Want to make me a scapegoat? Did you ask for my opinion? Song Qingshu's voice suddenly turned cold. Speaking of which, the reason why I came to this world in hard mode is because of you. Song Qingshu felt extremely unhappy when he thought of the place where he had transmigrated, where all the tendons and veins in his body had been severed, and he had to lie in bed and wait for death. Perhaps it was the lingering obsession of this body, but he suddenly felt a desire to kill Chen Yuliang. This is not up to you. Chen Yuliang was still laughing when he suddenly realized something. His complexion changed, and he quickly retreated. 3 elders, kill him for me. It turned out that he was a meticulous thinker. He suddenly realized that he had purposely lowered his voice and whispered in Shi Shangyun's ear, but Song Qingshu could hear him. This meant that Song Qingshu still had his internal energy and was not restrained like Shi Shangyun had claimed. Song Qingshu did not expect Chen Yuliang to react so quickly. Before he could make a move, Chen Yuliang had already hidden in the crowd. Although the 3 elders did not know what was going on, they had all been raised by Chen Yuliang, so they completely followed his lead. When they heard the order, they subconsciously pounced towards Song Qingshu. Chapter 13:16. At this moment, Shi Shangyun's mood was very complicated. On one hand, Song Qingshu came with them, and she felt sorry for him. She subconsciously did not want anything to happen to him. On the other hand, Song Qingshu was captured and had his internal energy sucked dry because of her. Otherwise, with his world-famous cultivation, he would not be in any danger even if he faced such an attack. While she was in a dilemma, Shi Shangyun's eyes suddenly went wide because she saw Song Qingshu suddenly stretch out his hand from the immortal binding shackle. Facing the 3 ninth pouch elders that were approaching menacingly, he pulled, pushed, and pressed, and the figures of the 3 ninth pouch elders staggered and scattered in all directions. All of their faces were pale, and their true chi was shaken. Obviously, they'd already suffered internal injuries that weren't light, and the encirclement was instantly broken. Not only Shi Shangyun was stunned, but even the people of the beggar clan were a little dizzy. It should be known that Xuan Gong, elder of law enforcement, Zhang Bo Lan Tu, and Zhang Bang Lan Tu were the few people with the highest martial arts in the beggar clan. Except for 1 or 2 genius clan leaders like Xiao Feng, ordinary clan leaders might not be able to beat Xuan Gong. Just now, everyone had witnessed the power of their joint attack. That insufferably arrogant Wei Ruolin was already beaten half to death. However, no one expected that these 3 people would be defeated in one move by Song Qingshu. Even Wei Ruolin, who was in a trance, looked over. Seeing that Song Qingshu had injured 3 9-pouch elders in one move, her pupils suddenly shrank. She exclaimed, "How is this possible? Wasn't your internal energy sucked away by me?" Song Qingshu glanced at him indifferently. "That's just your wishful thinking. We'll settle the score later." After saying that, he ignored him and stared at Chen Yuliang in the distance. He sneered and said, "You caused me to be excluded from Wudong's sect and became the target of everyone in Jianghu. It's time to settle the score today." After saying that, his figure flashed and appeared next to Chen Yuliang. He grabbed at his clavicle, acupoint. As long as he pressed it, he would instantly lose the ability to fight. Unexpectedly, Chen Yuliang's eyes flashed. He, who was originally stunned, suddenly reached out his hand from an unbelievable angle and blocked the opponent's palm strike. Song Qingshu was a little surprised. Chen Yuliang's martial arts were many times better than what he remembered. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint, the two of them had already exchanged more than 10 moves. If it was an ordinary expert, When faced with Chun Yuliang's deliberate act of weakness and sudden attack, they might even be counterattacked and killed. Fortunately, it was Song Qing-shu who was in a hurry and did not succeed in his sneak attack. Tendon-changing classic? Song Qing-shu's expression was a little unsightly. He had already recognized Chun Yuliang's martial arts after fighting for a while. It was obvious that he had practiced the Shaolin supreme skill, the muscle-bone strengthening scripture, which was why he had made such rapid progress. Originally, Chun Yuliang's aptitude was very high, and he was also very quick-witted. He even secretly learned the 13 styles of Tai Chi when Zhang Sanfeng brought little Zhang Wuji to Shaolin for medical treatment. His only shortcoming was that he did not learn high-level internal energy. Now that he had learned the muscle-bone strengthening scripture, he instantly became one of the top experts in Jianghu. Chun Yuliang's expression was even more unsightly. Originally, when he learned the muscle-bone strengthening scripture, he thought that there were few experts in the world who were worthy of his attention. However, he had always been scheming, so he never showed off his martial arts, waiting for a critical moment to kill. However, he had never expected that his sneak attack, which he had been so confident in, would not injure Song Qing-shu at all. Moreover, after exchanging more than 10 moves, he felt that the pressure coming from Song Qing-shu's body was increasing, and he could not help but be in a difficult position. So what if you have learned the muscle-bone strengthening scripture ? Song Qing-shu sneered and increased the strength of his attacks. In less than 10 moves, he would be able to subdue him. Suddenly, he had an idea. His figure flashed to the side, and he saw that the ground where he was just standing was already covered with frost. What a domineering cold-een power! As Song Qing-shu was sighing, he saw a gray shadow flash, and a figure jumped out from the side and attacked him. Song Qing-shu did not dare to be careless, and hastily braced himself to deal with the attack. Although Chun Yuliang's internal energy was profound, he was still a beginner, and his experience was still shallow, so some of his moves were not mature enough. However, this man in gray was completely different. His moves were ruthless, but they were exquisite to the extreme. Obviously, this man had mastered his martial arts for dozens of years, which was why he could be so proficient. Chun Yuliang slightly calmed down his surging internal energy and immediately joined the fight, joining forces with the man in gray to fight Song Qing-shu. The three masters moved around, and the wind from their fists and palms forced the beggar clan disciples around them to have difficulty breathing, and they could only retreat step by step. After exchanging more than 10 moves, Song Qing-shu noticed that every time he and the man in gray's palms collided, a part of the internal energy in his palms would disappear. He could not help but frown. Absorbing Star's great skill? Who are you? This man in gray was wearing a mask, so he could not see his face clearly. Obviously, the man in gray was not interested in answering his question, and all kinds of ruthless moves came surging over. As Song Qing-shu defended against the opponent's attacks, he was surprised in his heart. In this world, there were only a few people who knew the Absorbing Star's great skill. One was Ren Wuxing, and the other was Ling Huchong. Obviously, this man in front of him was not one of them. Later on the Blackwood Cliff, in order to dissolve the innate sword qi in his body, Zhang Wuji learned the Absorbing Star's great skill from him. But now, Zhang Wuji was dealing with the Mongolian army in the western regions, so he did not have time to come to the Central Plains. Moreover, this man was a thin old man, and his size was much smaller than Zhang Wuji's. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but be astonished. After all, none of the people who knew the Absorbing Star's great skill in Jianghu matched the person in front of him. The only explanation was that Ren Wuxing had taught the Absorbing Star's great skill to someone else without his knowledge. But this did not make sense. Ren Wuxing was now his father-in-law, so it was impossible for him to find someone to make life difficult for him. Just catch him and interrogate him. Since he could not understand, Song Qing-shu did not want to waste his time and directly increased his attack. His change from defense to offense immediately made the two people in front of him feel the pressure suddenly increase. They could only fight back with 120% of their attention, but their hearts were getting more and more shocked. Seeing Song Qingshu's moves were so elegant, and he easily forced the two masters into a difficult situation, Shi Shangyun was in a trance for a moment. Previously, in her heart, she had always thought that the best martial artist in the younger generation was her lover, and that the so-called Golden Snake King was completely a false rumor spread by those in the martial arts world who had not seen the world. That was why she was so arrogant when she heard the people of the beggar clan bragging about Song Qingshu in the inn. Later at home, he was easily subdued by her, and his power was absorbed by Wei Ruolin. This made her despise him even more. She only thought that the famous Golden Snake King was a good-for-nothing, as she had expected. But in this trip to the beggar clan, her lover, who she had always admired, was unable to withstand a single blow from the experts of the beggar clan, causing her to suffer the most tragic thing in the world. But at this time, Song Qingshu, who she looked down upon, came to save the world. The 3 9-pouch elders who had previously beaten her lover like a dog were defeated in one move, and now there were 2 more powerful masters. She could only barely protect herself. It was only now that Shi Shangyun realized that she had always been prejudiced against this famous man. It was not that the others had not seen the world, it was she who had not seen the world. However, Miss Shi had always been firm and determined. After a short moment of absent-mindedness, she returned her attention to her lover. Unfortunately, Wei Ruolin did not look at her at all. Instead, all her attention was on the 3 masters who were fighting in the field, her eyes revealing a burst of fanaticism. Chapter 13-17. Seeing that her lover's attention was not on her, Shi Shangyun could not help but pout. It was obvious that in her heart, everything else was secondary. Only her lover's care and love were the most important. But then she thought about it again. As a man, it was normal for Brother Wei to pay more attention to his career. Now that several masters were fighting, it was a rare opportunity to observe. Brother Wei had always liked martial arts, so it was not strange for him to have such a reaction. Thinking of this, Shi Shangyun instantly beamed with joy. A girl in love would only think about her lover. It was as if she could forgive anything the other party did. Following her lover's gaze, Shi Shangyun saw Song Qingshu fighting valiantly against the 2 masters of the beggar sect. She could not help but sigh. I didn't realize that he was quite handsome before, but compared to my brother Wei, he is still a bit lacking. Song Qingshu had already exchanged dozens of blows with the 2 of them. If he was fighting against any one of them, he would have already captured them. However, the 2 of them were constantly looking out for each other, neutralizing each other's attacks, which made them much more difficult to deal with. One of them has the Yi Jing, and the other has the Absorbing Star's great skill. But they give me a feeling that they are from the same source. It is really strange. Song Qingshu frowned. One of them had learned the divine skills of a righteous sect, while the other had learned the evil skills of a demonic sect. But for some reason, their martial arts were strangely similar. It was as if they came from the same sect. Otherwise, they would not be able to cooperate so well and would have been defeated by him long ago. Let me see your true face. Song Qingshu snorted coldly and suddenly disappeared into thin air. Chen Yuliang and the man in gray were alarmed. They quickly dodged to the side, but it was too late. Song Qingshu had already appeared next to the man in gray. He poked at the major acupuncture point on the man's waist with one finger and grabbed at the man's face with the other. The man in gray was shocked. In a hurry, he used his best skill to block the attack. As the 2 fingers collided, the gray-robed man felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He no longer had the strength to resist the claw that was descending towards his face. If Chen Yuliang hadn't grabbed his waist and leaped back several feet in time, there would have been a few more bloody holes on his head. He would have followed in the footsteps of the elder of law enforcement at the lion-slaying convention. Song Qingshu did not follow up with another attack. Instead, he raised his finger and looked at the thin layer of frost on it. He finally guessed the other party's identity. Illusory Een finger, so you're the mixed element thunderbolt palm, Chung Kun. When Yang Xiao was struck by Cheng Kuan's illusory yin finger, he felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. His entire body stiffened, and he was unable to move for several hours. However, Song Qingshu only needed to circulate his inner breath to dispel the coldness on his finger. "Weren't you imprisoned in the Shaolin Temple by the Golden Fur Lion King?" Although he had not seen what happened at the lion-slaying convention with his own eyes, Song Qingshu was still quite clear about the general situation. That was why he was very confused. How could a theoretically disabled person, a prisoner in prison, suddenly appear here alive and well? At this time, the man in gray's mask had been swept off by the strong wind, revealing his original appearance. It was indeed the mixed-element thunderbolt palm, Cheng Kuan. At this time, Chen Yuliang's heart was already trembling. He no longer had the thought of fighting with him. He shouted, "Big dog formation! Avenge the former elder of law enforcement and Zhangbo Long too. Kill this monster!" In fact, compared to Song Qingshu, the hatred between the beggar clan and Cheng Kuan was even greater. After all, Song Qingshu only killed 2 nine-pouch elders, but Cheng Kuan was the main culprit who killed their former clan leader. Unfortunately, for the past 2 years, Chen Yuliang had been painstakingly managing the beggar clan. He had purged a large number of elders, and now the beggar clan was like an iron bucket. Although there were a few people who still had doubts when they saw Cheng Kuan, they were surrounded by Chen Yuliang's trusted subordinates. Dog-killing formation? Song Qingshu muttered to himself. This dog-killing formation was very famous in the Jianghu. It was the beggar clan's cornerstone formation. According to legend, it was comparable to Shaolin's Luohan formation, Wudong's Jinwu Seven Sections formation, and Xuanzhen's Big Dipper formation. Previously, when he was fighting Chen Yuliang, 2 people, the beggar clan's experts, had already prepared their weapons, ready to step forward to help at any time. Now that they received Chen Yuliang's order, they swarmed forward in a flash and arranged the big dog slaughtering formation. He saw the crowd of beggars were shouting loudly. The sabers flashed like snow. More than 100 beggar clan martial art masters were holding their curved sabers, surrounding Song Qingshu in the middle. These nearly 100 people were either singing the falling lotus flower, or groaning in pain, or punching their own chests with their fists, or shouting, "Lei oi, Tai-Dai, spare us a mouthful of cold rice." Song Qingshu was startled at first, but he immediately understood that these strange cries were meant to disturb the enemy's mind. The footsteps of the crowd of beggars were mixed. They were running and leaping here and there, without the slightest pause. They advanced and retreated, but their movements were rigorous and disciplined. Your honorable clan's dog slaughtering formation has a very good name. It's just that killing a dog is easy, but if you want to subdue a dragon or tame a tiger, this formation is useless. As soon as Song Qingshu's voice fell, his shadow flashed, and he dashed toward the center of the formation. "Everybody, let's attack together." The crowd of beggars brandished their sabers. Some brandished their swords. It was as if a snowflake had bloomed in front of them, swiftly sweeping towards Song Qingshu's body. They saw Song Qingshu dash to the left, but his body slanted to the right. His movement was so fast that the crowd of beggars' eyes could not follow him, which made it impossible for them to execute the big dog slaughtering formation's many exquisite changes. They saw white rays flashed repeatedly, followed by puff, 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 puff noise. The curved sabers in the hands of the dog slaughtering formation beggars were snatched and thrown away by Song Qingshu. Each saber was inserted into the beam of the main hall. Nearly 100 curved sabers were neatly lined up in a row. Each saber was inserted about a foot into the beam. In private, Dongfang Muxue often criticized him for being soft-hearted, but in the end Song Qingshu was not someone who would kill people like flies. These beggar clan disciples were only following orders. As the saying goes, where it is possible to forgive, forgive. Therefore, he only snatched their weapons, but did not kill them. Even so, it was enough to shake people's hearts. The crowd of beggars saw that their clan's most powerful formation was easily broken by him. They were dumbfounded. One after another they retreated several steps, looking at him as if they were looking at a monster. Suddenly the quiet main hall was filled with Cheng Kuan's angry voice. Song Qing-shu, why haven't you stopped? Song Qing-shu turned his head around and saw Chang Kun was grabbing Shi Shangyun's shoulder with one hand, while the other was pressing on her neck, looking at him with a fearful expression. Why should I stop? Song Qing-shu's countenance did not change at all. He only looked at him. Chang Kun's breathing stopped. He was somewhat angry out of shame as he said, Your woman is in my hands. If you dare to act blindly without thinking, my phantom finger will poke down. Even a deity won't be able to save her. As he said that, his finger pressed down. Shi Shangyun could not help but cry out in pain. If you want to press, then press. She has nothing to do with me anyway. Song Qing-shu shrugged his shoulders. This woman is treacherous and vicious. She tried to murder me. If you really kill her, I should be thanking you instead. Shi Shangyun had just seen him unleashing his invincible power, easily breaking the beggar clan's formation. She could not help but stare at him with her beautiful eyes. Now that she suddenly heard her image in the opponent's heart was treacherous and vicious, these 4 words, she felt so wrong that she was about to cry. However, when she recalled what she had done to him, this evaluation did not seem to be unjust. Chapter 13:18. Qin Yuliang also chimed in. That's right, with your martial arts, if you didn't want to, why would you be tied up and brought here? The only explanation is that you and her are colluding to deceive us, trying to usurp the position of the beggar clan leader. What a wild ambition. His words immediately caused the crowd of beggars to be filled with righteous indignation. They all stared angrily at the two of them. Song Qing-shu frowned. Qin Yuliang was indeed an expert in reading people's minds. He really was tied up willingly, of course. His motive was different for what he had guessed. Break your right arm, and I'll let her live. Otherwise, don't blame me for destroying a flower. Chang Kun thought that even if Song Qing-shu's martial arts were high, with his right arm broken, he would lose most of his martial arts. He would no longer be a threat. So he added more strength to his hand, pressuring Shi Shangyun so much that she couldn't help but cry out in pain. Song Qing-shu laughed involuntarily. You are a famous villain for many years. Why do you say such ridiculous words? Not to mention that this woman has nothing to do with me. Even if she was really my woman, do you think I would break my arm for her? Chang Kun's face heated up. If it was him, he would definitely not agree. Originally, he wanted to see if he could be a gentleman. He did not propose to break both of his arms. He was afraid that the other party would be forced into a corner. He did not expect that the other party was not a gentleman at all. He was as cunning as an old fox. You don't have to pretend to be relaxed. I'll count to 3. If you don't say anything, don't blame me for being ruthless. 1. Chang Kun said as he raised his finger. The power of the phantom finger gradually gathered at the tip of his finger. The color of his finger gradually turned blue. The surrounding air even emitted a cold air. Song Qing-shu lightly said, If you want to massage me, then do it. I've already said that this woman has nothing to do with me. Even though he was not related to Shi Shangyun, if the incident at the censor's mansion had not happened, he would not have minded helping her. After all, he still had a chivalrous heart in his bones. But at the censor's mansion, the other party and her lover conspired to plot against him. He was not a masochist. Why would he waste his effort to save her? Confucius once said, How to repay evil with good? How to repay good? 2. When he saw that there was no fluctuation in Song Qing-shu's eyes, Chang Kun's heart sank. He purposely dragged out his voice, and the speed at which his fingers descended gradually slowed down. He was trying to prolong the time and increase the pressure on Song Qing-shu's heart. Did you not eat? Why are you shouting so weakly? Do you want me to help you shout 3? Song Qing-shu spread his hands and said helplessly, You. With Chang Kun's level, he realized that his previous threat was useless. A fierce glint flashed in his eyes as he used the illusory finger to press down on Shi Shangyun. He did not know if Song Qing-shu's words were a bluff or if he really did not care about Shi Shangyun. But what kind of person was he? He was a strong person who had almost destroyed the entire Ming dynasty with his own strength. How could he be led by the nose by the other party? His full-power illusory finger had stabbed into Shi Shangyun's body. If he did not immediately rescue her, she would most likely die in the time it takes to drink half a cup of tea. Once Song Qingshu rescued her, he would naturally not have the time to deal with them, and he and Chen Yuliang would be able to smoothly escape. As for the possibility of Song Qingshu not rescuing her, he immediately eliminated it. Cheng Kuan was very clear about the human heart. Even if Song Qingshu really had no relationship with Shi Shangyun, it was not enough for him to make such a huge sacrifice by cutting off his right hand. But right now, saving her was as easy as lifting a finger, and it was not as difficult as cutting off his hand. How could a hot-blooded man watch a young girl die tragically in front of him without doing anything? Stop! But at this moment, Wei Rulin, who was dispirited and listless on the ground like a dead dog, suddenly rushed over. Because Cheng Kuan's attention was completely focused on guarding against Song Qingshu, coupled with the ingenuity of Wei Rulin's water-treading subtle steps, Shi Shangyun was unexpectedly pulled away from his hands. After all, Cheng Kuan was an old devil who had been famous for dozens of years. He knew that it was too late to take Shi Shangyun back, so he might as well go all out. He continued to stab into her body with his illusory finger. Only when she was poisoned would he have the opportunity to smoothly escape. Wei Rulin was already seriously injured. It took a lot of effort for him to snatch Shi Shangyun back from Cheng Kuan's hands. How could he protect his fiancée's safety under the attack of the opponent's phantom finger? In a split second, Wei Rulin held his fiancée in his arms and used his own body to block the illusory finger. At that moment, Wei Rulin felt as if her back was about to explode. Immediately after, her whole body felt as if it had fallen into an ice house. Her whole body was so cold that it was numb, and she could not even move a finger. Brother Wei, Shi Shangyun screamed in a mournful voice. Seeing that the illusory finger had hit Wei Rulin, Cheng Kuan secretly cursed in his heart. Unfortunately, he did not have the time to launch a second attack. He hastily circulated his true qi and ran outside. He did not dare to stay for even a moment. Chen Yuliang also moved at the same time. The two of them did not discuss anything, but they ran in the opposite direction with tacit understanding. They had thought it through thoroughly. This way, Song Qingshu could only choose one direction to chase after. Even if something happened to one of them, the other would still be able to keep his life. I hope he chases after Yuliang. Cheng Kuan kept praying in his heart as he ran as fast as he could. As for the master-disciple relationship between him and Chen Yuliang, it had long been thrown to the back of his mind at this moment of life and death. Suddenly, there was a blur before his eyes, and two figures appeared out of thin air in front of him. Cheng Kuan rubbed his eyes in disbelief. He saw that Chen Yuliang was being held by the back of his neck by Song Qingshu. Chen Yuliang looked dispirited. How is this possible? Cheng Kuan was scared out of his wits. After Chen Yuliang practiced the tendon-changing technique, his martial arts were no weaker than Cheng Kuan's. How could he be captured alive in such a short time? In fact, being captured alive was very normal. After all, he had already experienced Song Qingshu's unfathomable martial arts when they exchanged blows just now. However, Song Qingshu first captured Chen Yuliang alive in the opposite direction, and then appeared in front of him first. This was very beyond common sense. Just as he was about to die from shock, Cheng Kuan felt his chest go numb. It turned out that his opponent had taken the opportunity to seal his acupoints. In fact, with Cheng Kuan's current martial arts, although he could not defeat Song Qingshu, he would not be captured in one move. The fact that he and Chen Yuliang had combined forces to exchange dozens of moves with Song Qingshu was proof of this. However, the two of them had lost their courage and only wanted to escape as quickly as possible, which was why they were defeated. Are you a human or a ghost? Cheng Kuan still hadn't recovered from his shock. He murmured. After sealing the acupoints of the master and disciple, Song Qingshu threw the two of them at the foot of a large tree. He said indifferently, "Now, your life and death are in my hands. Only I have the right to ask you. You have no right to ask questions." The master and disciple looked at each other, and Chen Yuliang said, "Since we have fallen into your hands, we admit defeat. What do you want to ask?" Chapter 13:19. Chung Kun felt a chill in his heart, and he said embarrassedly, "Why did you?" Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly remembered that Meng Qi had just said that they had no right to ask questions. He snapped out of his shock and shut his mouth, but he immediately realized that such a reaction was too degrading. For a moment, his expression was extremely ugly. "Don't think that I don't know what you two are planning. In this world, there aren't many people as cunning as you two. Are you trying to fool me with some random answers?" Song Qingshu looked at him coldly. "I wouldn't dare." Now that the situation was more powerful than he was, Chung Kun could only admit defeat. Master Yuanjun has roamed the world for so many years. You should have heard of the 9E manual, right? Song Qingshu suddenly said. "I have." Chung Kun nodded and then smiled obsequiously. "Young master, you must have relied on this divine skill to kill everyone at the lion-slaying convention." At the same time, he felt strange. Although the 9E manual was powerful, it could not surpass the Shaolin Temple's muscle bone strengthening scripture. He had seen the power of muscle bone strengthening scripture from Chen Yuliang, but how could it compare to Song Qingshu's terrifying cultivation? Song Qingshu did not comment on his deliberate flattery. "Since you know the 9E manual, you must know about the soul transfer technique in the 9E manual, right?" Chung Kun was shocked and quickly lowered his head. "I've heard of it. Legend has it that it can steal a person's mind." "That's good." Song Qingshu nodded. "Originally, I didn't have to go through the trouble of using the soul transfer technique on you. That way, you would tell me everything you know, and I wouldn't have to worry about you lying to me. However, the soul transfer technique has a drawback. After it is used on the target, it will easily affect their mind. The higher the target's power, the stronger their resistance will be, and the greater the damage to their brain will be. It is very likely that they will become an idiot." Once he finished speaking, he deliberately paused and looked at Chung Kun thoughtfully. Chung Kun hastily said, "I hope Gongzi will be magnanimous. Whatever Gongzi wants to ask, I will not dare to conceal anything." Song Qingshu then continued, "I don't want two idiots, so I won't use it on you for the time being. However, you'd better answer my questions honestly. I'll wake Qin Yuliang up later and ask him the same questions again. If there's any discrepancy, in order to verify who's lying, don't blame me for using the soul transfer technique." He couldn't be blamed for using such threatening words. Chung Kun and Chen Yuliang, the two villains in the original work, were more cunning than foxes and more vicious than poisonous snakes. If he wasn't careful, he would fall into their trap. He had to be careful. With a wry smile, Chung Kun said, "Shaoran understands. Gongzi can ask." Song Qingshu nodded and asked, "Weren't you locked up in the Shaolin Temple after the lion-slaying assembly? Why are you here?" "It was Yuliang who saved me." Chung Kun glanced at Chen Yuliang next to him. "Nonsense." Song Qingshu frowned. "The Shaolin Temple is heavily guarded and has many masters. How could Chen Yuliang have the ability to save a felon like you?" Seeing his unfriendly expression, Chung Kun's heart skipped a beat. He hastily explained, "Yuliang didn't save me by force. He asked the abbot for me, and the abbot decided to let me out." Chen Yuliang has such a great reputation. Song Qingshu stared at him coldly. Chung Kun swallowed and explained, "Speaking of which, it's because of Gongzi." "Because of me?" Song Qingshu said coldly. "If you keep me guessing like this, believe it or not, I'll break one of your legs first." I don't dare," Chung Kun hurriedly explained. "These past few years, Gongzi and Shaolin have had several conflicts. Everyone in Shaolin knows that they have offended you. Now that Gongzi's reputation is growing in the Central Plains, the abbot and the others are worried that once you seize the world in the future, Shaolin will face a disaster. So on one hand, they sent eminent monks to preach Buddhism to the Mongolian princes and gain their friendship. If the Mongolians seize the world in the future, they will have formed a good relationship with them in advance. On the other hand, they found Yuliang and taught him the muscle bone strengthening scripture. At the same time, they secretly supported him to take charge of the beggar sect and help him seize the world. At the same time, to a certain extent, they restrained the development of the Golden Snake Camp. Yuliang took the opportunity to ask me to help him. Everyone in Shaolin thought that I was a useless person and couldn't do much, so they agreed to his request. Hearing Cheng Kuan's answer, Song Qingshu was shocked and angry. These past 2 years, he had indeed had several conflicts with Shaolin, but these were all internal conflicts among the people. Everyone's main enemy was the powerful empire of the grassland in the north. He did not expect that the people of Shaolin Temple not only did not want to drive out the Tartars, but also colluded with foreign enemies and used their strength to deal with their own people. No wonder in his previous life, when people from other countries went abroad, they would unite to fight against foreign enemies, but only the Chinese liked to fight among themselves. The people who were most ruthless to the Chinese were not the white people, but their own compatriots. Many ambitious people were heartbroken when they saw their own people fighting among themselves. They did not expect that after traveling through time, they would once again feel this kind of pain on their skin. Song Qingshu's face was as calm as water, his eyes flashing. After a long time, he finally calmed down and looked at him coldly. At the lion-slaying gathering, your internal power was obviously destroyed by Xie's son. Why is it that now, not only has your internal power recovered, but it is even better than before? And where did you learn that absorbing stars' great skill? Speaking of which, this is also because of young master. Cheng Kuan looked at him with a bitter smile. Because of me again? Song Qingshu flicked his finger. Cheng Kuan immediately held his leg and screamed. Don't keep me in suspense. Cheng Kuan had to endure the pain and quickly said, one day, a mysterious person came to us and said that he could cure my injury and restore my martial arts. But I had to agree to one condition. At that time, I was like a drowning man who had caught a straw. Although my reason told me that it was not possible, I still agreed. As long as I could recover, let alone one condition, even if it was 10,000 conditions, I would agree. That person cured my meridians. Originally, I thought that as long as my meridians were restored, I would practice hard for a few years. Although I could not restore my previous level, it would be enough. But he taught me the absorbing star's great skill, which made my martial arts better than before in less than a year. Song Qingshu snorted coldly. I'm afraid that you have absorbed a lot of internal energy from experts in the past year. Cheng Kuan laughed awkwardly. Yes, when I returned to the beggar clan with Yuliang, I secretly absorbed a lot of people who did not know what was good for them. He knew the enmity between Song Qingshu and the beggar clan, so he did not worry about making him angry. Who was that mysterious person? If it was Huang Rong's Xiangyang beggar clan, Song Qingshu might have helped them. He had no interest in the clean-clothes sect in Jiangnan. Cheng Kuan replied, I don't know that person's name. I asked him several times, but he did not tell me. He only told me to do my best to help Chun Yuliang deal with the Golden Snake Battalion. At first, I thought he was Yuliang's friend, but later I found out that he was not. Anyway, I have recovered my martial arts, so it does not matter who he is. That person only asked you to help deal with me. Song Qingshu frowned. Could it be that the person who knew the absorbing star's great skill was Ren Wuxing? But that did not make sense. It was not comfortable to have such a powerful person hiding in the dark and eyeing him like a tiger watching its prey. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.